everyone, welcome back to Poppin In with Alexa and Molly. I'm Molly.
And I'm Alexa.
And we are back from a hot, summery,
sizzling time at the lake.
Yes.
That makes it sound like kind of
weird.
Yeah.
But realistically, we were actually at
a
the
lovely lake
it was over 4th of July, but we weren't celebrating America. We were celebrating me.
Yeah, the birth of Molly Phaser Golson.
Yeah, and we had such a good time.
Yeah, it really was. If you guys, like, I'm an ocean girly. Usually I love the seaside, but this has really changed me.
I'm not. I always say on this podcast now, I don't care about the ocean anymore. It's about the lake for me. I want to be murdered at a lake by some serial killer or something. Like, I want to be, like, I want to be, like, in a cabin in a lake, like, just, like, scared for my life, like, running. Like, it's such a vibe for me.
You did bring up, like, getting murdered again.
I know, like, multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm sure it made everyone uncomfortable.
No, I mean, I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Chris and Matthew were just like, okay.
Yeah.
But no, it was great. Molly has now been around the sun for her 29th turn, and she's doing it better than ever.
Oh, thank you. I think only a couple days.
We had a fun time.
But I have to say that we played this game the first night Alexa got there. We played this game. We literally were sitting. It felt like we were like cousins or something. Like we were sitting in like what would have been like probably the cousin room at this house. Like if it were like a family, it was like a little like it was like a room that had like bunk beds and like whatever beds, and we just sat there and played for probably like an hour.
Yeah, and Chris and Matthew were just like darts like men stuff, and we were like
we played this like really. It was actually a very fun game. I like want to play it a lot more. But were you
Amore.
just you? It wasn't like me asking the questions. You were asking who. You started out by like naming like really obscure actors in a movie, and I had to guess the movie as you like progressively like.
I know. I was like, "Do you want to do one?" And you were like, "No." I was like, okay.
Yeah.
I will say I have to give credit where credit's due. I did get the idea from this TikTok called the Kaiser Brothers, where they do like shout out. I literally have spent so many nights just like watching where they do this game with each other. It is fun
because sometimes it's like you name people and you think it's something, but then it's like it's not.
And also, fans of the podcast, I want to share like the gift that I got you because people will know. If you know, you know. I got her a blanket with a bunch of Robert Pattinson faces on it.
Yes, I should have brought it. It should be my podcast blanket.
Oh yeah,
but I want it at home.
Okay, whatever you
stare
want to do. Yeah.
I loved it. I was so happy. I was like, wow, I do really love Robert Pattinson, don't I?
Yes, and it was from both me and Chris, but like, you know.
Obviously, yeah. I don't really think Chris
is very much like the dad on Christmas.
I was going to say where he's like, oh, we got that?
Yeah.
That actually happened one time. I think it was last year. You guys were talking about something and you were like, we got her that for her birthday. Like he commented on something that I had and you literally were like, we got her that for her birthday. And he was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. It literally came. I was like, was so excited. I ripped open the package. I was like, look, it came. And he was like, what is that for? And I was like, the thing that I discussed with you, Molly's birthday that we are going to. And he was like, oh, nice. And I was like, okay, thank you so much. He does care. He does.
I know. But it is very similar to like when I'm like, this present's from my parents, but it's like my mom. You know?
Yeah, yes, always. But yeah, it was a great time. Yes. We did not get murdered, sadly.
Unfortunately. But it really refreshed us to be back here for, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but.
I actually have a question I want to ask you. My mom asked me this.
What?
What do you think is worse, packing or unpacking?
Oh, unpacking's way worse.
Okay, that's what I said, but my mom and Chris were like, oh, packing, like, because you're, like, running around trying to get everything. I was like, okay, well, when I come back from a trip, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And now I gotta, like, all my stuff is in this suitcase. Like, this morning, I was trying to, like, wash my face, and I literally was like...
Yeah, that's frustrating.
It's in my suitcase!
You know what, though? I will kind of agree with them in a way that I think it's super stressful to pack. Because you do feel like you're forgetting something. I make little lists.
Yeah.
But on my Pedro Pascal notepad, my Pedro Daddy, what is it called? Daddy's Estate of Mind notepad that is running out. There's only one notepad page left. I'm literally saving it. I'm never going to use it.
I literally thought you were referring to your dad. I was like, oh, do you call your dad Daddy? I didn't know that about you.
Okay, I'm talking
like,
about...
fine if you do, but
I'm talking about my notepad.
Oh.
Anyway, I write it down on that, but even then, I'm still, like, running around, like, stressed. So I kind of get it. But also, I usually take days to unpack, sometimes a week. And yesterday, I completely unpacked. But all that is to say that we are refreshed. We are sunburnt and tan, and we feel like we can now be revived to talk about pop culture.
Yeah, I
don't
feel
think any
like
of that
I'm
makes
excited
sense.
because I feel like we just like really needed that like trip together to enjoy more time together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Just get through the staleness of life. Not that this
Yeah.
podcast is ever stale. This is the highlight of my week, actually.
It's not. We even said, we were like, oh, it's a slow week, but then like I'm looking at our like list of topics and we actually have a lot to go over.
Yeah.
So,
also, speaking of which,
yes.
we should say, if you are worried about spoilers or you want to skip through a topic, we post the timestamps in the description of every episode, and it's also on our podcast at Poppin In Podcast. I'm sorry, it's on our Instagram at Poppin In Podcast. At every week, which is also where you can see our out of context posts and answer our question of the week. Yay.
So let's get into it.
So the bear. Yeah.
So yeah, I think our first thing that we like really want to talk about today is I finished The Bear. I think
I have 2 episodes to go, but I know what happens because I like read a lot of reviews and listened. I was so close to. I was trying really hard, but
yeah.
Like that, I forgot there was like an hour-long episode in the middle of them. When I was
the wedding episode was super long.
Yeah.
It was actually my favorite episode of the whole season.
Me too.
Okay, good.
Okay, so this
let's
season.
get into it. So let's talk about this season because before you started it, you were like, please no spoilers, and I kept like hyping it up to you guys. I was like, it's actually way better than last season, I thought. I thought last season was so unmemorable.
I literally can't remember a thing that happened
last season,
except they opened. I was like thinking about it, I was like, it's crazy that they opened a like fancier restaurant and like immediately on opening, it's like, we have to get a Michelin star immediately.
Yeah. And
I was like, that's wild.
Well, you guys
just
are like,
have a nice restaurant.
Right. Well, the whole thing is like weird to me. I can't imagine having like a favorite restaurant. And I mean, now keep in mind, they do have the window where they serve the sandwiches still.
Which is also like a weird.
I know, because it doesn't fit the vibe of the restaurant. So it's just like, but can you imagine like having a favorite just like trashy sandwich restaurant? Like, or trash, whatever, where it's like, it's not good, but it's like the food is good and you love it and you go to it all the time.
It's called the Original Beef.
And then they decide to change it to they're trying to a small tiny plates restaurant where it's like
potentially
overly fancy
Michelin star rated restaurant. It's like, wait,
so pissed.
Yeah, didn't this have like a D like rating from the Department of Health?
Wasn't it like almost
what?
shut down? Like,
yeah.
And the thing is, and it's called The Bear, which to me is like not a good name.
I actually hate
that
they named it The Bear.
Yeah,
like if anything, like it's like the line from The Social Network where it's like, remove the, it's cleaner.
Yeah, The Bear.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean? That's an animal. This is a restaurant.
Yeah, and like I get that it's like their last name, but like I just don't like it. I don't like the vibe of that. Yeah. This season, so it's interesting because you started watching it before I did, and at first you were like not really into it, but then you seemed to like change.
Because the first episode was that stupid thing where it was like, it just felt like it was trying to be really artsy and it was kind of slow, and I just like wasn't really into it, and then it did get better. I really did think this season was a lot better than last season. And it got like, it's just the episodes got more interesting. But I'm curious, so we can kind of get into it, but I'm curious like what your thoughts were overall.
So overall, again, I don't even remember last season. I think like my favorite season is the second season.
No, me too.
But I think the writing this season, the thing is there are certain things where it's like, I do still love the show. Like I love this family that they've created. That is very like warms my heart and like I want to be with them. But I think the writing is really trying too hard. Almost all the time. Yeah. And also like I feel like the first 2 seasons did have like a plot narrative that they're following, and then the second 2 seasons were like each episode were like focusing on this person or this thing, which I understand.
So many
like
bottle episodes. Yes. I don't need. Are they called bottle episodes when it's just about one per? I'm like, I don't need that. I've never ever wanted a bottle episode ever.
I think they're good when it's like 1 or 2 a season, but if it's a whole season of bottle episodes, I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't really care about any of the plot now. And the thing is, I will say for the most part, the way they do it, it feels very realistic, where it's like, these are these people's jobs, and then these things are happening on the periphery. And like, it's not like the main focus, these things, like the main focus is the job. Like if something happens to you at work, you're like kind of thinking about it, you're dealing with it, and you're also at work. Whereas like some shows, like the way they write it is a little like less realistic, where it's like, now we're focused on this thing because of the storytelling. I just think like without that though, like having every episode almost be a bottle episode, I'm like, some of the character development, I'm like, okay, So now I've learned more about this character that, like, I'm probably never going to see that much about again the rest of the season. Like, they'll be in and out.
So I didn't think this season did that as much. I can't even really think, except for, like, maybe I can't really think of this season, except for the last episode, doing that as much. But this third season had that, because, okay, bottle episodes are good.
Well, this is the fourth season.
I know.
Right?
Yeah. I'm saying, though, I can't think of this season doing that as much, but, like, the third season, except for the last episode, but the third season definitely did that. Like, I was like, I don't want an episode of just Sugar, or what's her name? Sugar Bear?
Yeah.
Of
Natalie
and Jamie Lee Curtis giving birth. Like, I don't want, I was so upset by that episode, because I was just like, I don't want this. It was so boring.
It is, like, at first I was like, okay, this is a unique way to, like, tell a story on TV. Like, people, they don't do it a lot. Mm-hmm. After 4 seasons,
Mad Men, it's great if you do a bottle episode. I'm like, wow, genius.
But then you have and like they do this. I always say, like, Supernatural or Doctor Who does this a lot, where it's like, okay, overarching plot of the season and bottle episodes here and then. And I actually loved the bottle episodes more than the, like, overall plot. But when it's all bottle episodes, it's like, okay, well, now it's hard for me to be invested in any of the characters because I'm getting, like, too much from them in this one.
Yeah, it's like it feels like they're trying to be too artistic, and that's sometimes that's what gets me with The Bear, is like, that's how I kind of felt, especially with the third season. But I feel like they're trying too hard to be, like, artsy and dramatic, and I'm like, you were supposed to be a comedy for real. But I will say, I think that they heard some complaint. Like, so last season, I felt like there was so much fact.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And they were, like, really carrying the comedy. Here's what I'm going to say about the writing.
Yeah.
Okay, so, like, in that first episode we watched together and we talked about this, I was just like, I feel like it is always, like, a love letter to the restaurant industry, this show, but it's always, like, a nuance. Like, it's, and the way they, in the first episode, I was like, it's too on the nose, the way they're writing it.
Yeah.
And then also, like, these characters have such distinct personalities, but now, like, maybe it's because of the bottle episodes, or, like, they almost are overwriting these characters where they feel like caricatures of a character.
Yeah.
Say that 5 times fast.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, even the whole wedding scene where it was, like, Natalie and Francine yelling at each other, and it's like, why do we care about this? It just doesn't feel realistic.
And they're yelling,
like, it doesn't feel like a real person anymore.
Yeah, and they're yelling kind of. So the thing about it is, like, I loved the chaos of the first 2 seasons where they were always talking over each other. It felt like a restaurant. Like, it felt like chaotic. But I did think it was, like, really good writing, and it felt, like, really realistic. Now it's either too silent, where their conversations are, you know, like, it's just, like, very, like, they're not saying anything.
Yeah.
And you're like, this is a waste of my 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like, some of these scenes are so... There was a scene, oh my God, in one of this episode, and I love Bob Odenkirk so much.
Oh, yeah.
There was a scene in the wedding episode where it was Bob Odenkirk and Jeremy Allen White talking, Carmi and whoever Bob Odenkirk plays.
Paul?
I can't remember, but they had a 15-minute scene.
Yeah.
It was literally 15 minutes of them not saying much. Like, it wasn't that outstanding of, like, what they were talking about. And that's what, it just feels like they do too much of that now. And I'm like, when did this show suddenly become so, like, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Like, what's the word where they think too highly of themselves?
Oh.
It starts with a P. I just can't think of it. Not promiscuous. What am I trying to say?
I know what you're thinking of.
Not presumptuous.
Not preposterous.
No. Pretentious.
It
felt very, like, it just felt too, like, pretentious and self-important, kind of. Like, that's just the vibe.
That was, like, all season 3. Yes. And then this season, I felt like they were like, oh, we need to be, like, funny again. And so, like, that whole scene where Natalie brings in her baby and the facts are like, can we hold it? And she's like, no. And then she's like, when's the last time you washed your hand? He says, a couple days ago. And I'm like, okay, I understand, like, this is supposed to be funny, but it's, like, not funny.
And this is what I was going to say about the facts earlier, is, like, I do think that they heard everyone loud and clear of, like, oh, we're not a comedy, but we should be. So, like, we say we are, but we're not funny. So, like, let's bring in the facts more. They brought in, his brother or whatever he is, Ted, who I don't think is funny at all. I can't stand that character. I think, like, Matty Matheson, what's his name?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Matheson.
Yeah, I always say his name wrong for some reason. I think he's, like, a good character. Like, I don't hate him, but I can't stand the two of them together. Like, I don't think they're funny. Like, I don't care about them at all. So I think, like, a little goes along. Like, I think when you show them, like, a little bit, it's okay. But I think they tried to rely too much on their comedy in the third season. And this season, I think they kind of scaled back a little bit. They were like, okay, people don't really love this as much.
And I think that's the exact thing. Like, you know how, like, there's this whole thing where they're talking to Abraham and he's like, think small. And it's like, I think, like, the show should literally do that with the writing. Where, again, I just feel like they're overwriting some of the characters.
Yeah.
Where, like, the conversations, I'm like, nobody... You're trying too hard to sound like natural conversation that it's making it sound unnatural. Where I'm like, nobody fucking talks to each other where they're just like, yeah, so you... Yeah, I did. Yep, okay. Yeah. Well, sure. I feel like Succession does it well in a similar way, but, like, it feels natural and it makes sense.
Also, this is random, but what is it? Speaking of I've noticed that the facts always go, because they did this with Francine, Francine Fack and
it was Brie Larson.
Brie Larson randomly. They really rely on the cameos so much. It makes crazy.
Me. Actually, when I was watching, I loved the wedding episode, but I was like, I almost wish that this was a show more of unknowns again.
I know,
because I'm like, now I'm just like, oh, this is Brie Larson.
I think people just love the show, and so they want to come on.
Yeah.
The one that got me was John Cena. I was like, we did not need that.
Yeah.
But and so anyway, I can't stand what they always go, well, like they always do that. I'm like, what is that?
Yes, and they like always, and I get like it's supposed to be like they're cutting each other off and stuff, but then I'm like, but you're cutting, like.
It doesn't make sense to us. Like
it doesn't make sense. Like nobody cuts each other off like that, right, you know? Like we cut each other off all the time, so they should listen to our podcast and like
some dialogue.
Yes, some tips on how to talk. Yeah, because again, it just and there are certain things like again the wedding episode I really loved because it's like wow this family is interesting because it's actually only like 2 people are literally blood related to each other and the rest are like almost like an adopted built-in family, but. Again, like, the whole scene was, so, like, there's a scene where Richie's daughter's under the table because she's embarrassed. She doesn't want to do the dance at her mom's wedding. And so then suddenly everyone keeps getting underneath this table, and there's, like, 15 people under. First of all, I was like, how do they all fit? How big is this table? I was like, this is so implausible.
I did think it was really cute when Carmy came under and was like,
oh,
like,
yeah.
Hi, baby. Like, I was like, oh, my God, he's so
I love seeing those scenes because we rarely get to see him as a person.
I know. And he's so, like, I think Carmy's an awful main character. I have to start out by saying that. No growth. Like, he's actually a very, very frustrating character.
This is the only season I've seen growth, and I was thinking about this earlier, I think they've been setting it up for him to not be the main character anymore. Because, spoiler, the end, he leaves.
Right. And so, and we can, did we say there would be spoilers? Whatever. I ask that every time. I think, and just, we'll come back to that, because I want to talk about that episode.
Which I haven't even seen. I just looked it up.
Okay. I do want to talk about that episode because that was like another like basically bottle episode. But I think the thing about Carmy is I love Jeremy Allen White. I think he's a phenomenal actor. Like I love him. I like Carmy, but I think like as a character he's very frustrating, and I'm going to get into why. But so speaking of all the family, only 2 people basically being related, and how everybody's kind of like just friends of the family. I want to talk about Claire.
Yes.
Let's get into Claire, because here's the thing. When they first introduced her...
Oh my God, I literally was thinking about this earlier today. Yes.
Okay, when they first introduced her, they set it up as if, like, she was kind of like a crush of Carmy's, like, through school, and that he never had, like, the guts to talk to her, whatever, and he just was, like, shy, and she was, like, you know, he had a crush on her, whatever. It's now evolved into that Claire is essentially a member of the family.
Right. Like,
which, like, that was not how it was
when they ran into each other in the grocery stores. Like, they hadn't seen each other in a long time, but now she's at Richie's ex-wife's wedding.
Like, how would she, no one even acted.
Yeah, and she's giving, she was giving, like, the groom, like, advice, like, yeah, like, you know, like, not everyone's a family, but it's a family, and blah. Like, she was, like, giving them advice on the family, and I was like, you literally, and I'm glad they mentioned this because there's a whole thing where Carmy goes and he talks to her on the stoop and she says, it's been a few months. And I'm like, thank God, because I didn't know how much time has passed. I'm like, okay, so y'all dated for a few months and now it's been a few months, but suddenly you're an expert on this family?
Also, their drama over each other, they're like anxious, angst over each other. I'm like, you would think they are like a divorced couple. Right. I'm like, you guys dated for, like however much long, like not even really dated. Like, I don't know. Why are you that upset right now? Like, I guess I just don't understand her. I feel like they made her more important than she originally was, because she didn't even come in until season 2, right?
Right.
And they didn't even, and so they kind of like, you know, it's clear that, I think they talk about it in the Christmas episode when they do a flashback, like, it's like clear that the family knows her, But you don't realize, like, how close she is to them until the wedding episode. I was like, oh, she's literally a member of the family. That's news to me. But Carmi acts like he hadn't seen her since they were in, like, school. So it's just, like, a very weird...
Because, and I think part of it is they're always like, oh, he was, abroad. Like, he went abroad and, like, worked at all those restaurants. And I'm like, okay, but he, like, has probably seen her. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, these people are clearly, like, in their 30s.
Right. And so I do want to talk about Claire because I'm curious what your thoughts are on Claire. I think... When I first saw it, I hated her character. I was like, I don't like her vibe. Like, I just didn't like her. And then she grew on me and I was like, oh, she's sweet. Like, I actually do like her character. Now it seems, and I'm kind of with everyone hates her. Really? Like, she is a very, like, hated character on the show. Like, maybe some people like her, but, like, I would say overall, there was actually a Collider article that I just read today where they talked about why her character is basically just unlikable on the show, and it's because she kind of gives like manic pixie girl, where she's like, she literally saves people's lives. She works in an emergency room in the hospital. She is, she makes like quirky, edgy jokes. Like when
she's quirky cute too.
Quirky cute. She made that joke about, which was like super weird, when she and Carmi were talking. It was like in season 2, when she said he was talking about his brother, and she randomly goes, speaking of dead brothers, do you want to go to a party? And it was just like very strange, like, it was like, why are you making that joke to somebody that you don't know that well, supposedly? Then all of a sudden, and they said this, they were like, how is she's suddenly like a member of the family? She comes to the wedding, like, and she's, like you said, giving advice, like, and she comes to the rescue. She takes the girl, like, she's the one who convinces the daughter to, come out or whatever. I don't know. It's just... And it's
supposed to be like, wow, I think they're really trying to be like, wow, look at this great thing that Carmi lost because he couldn't unfocus himself from this other thing.
And that's what they said. They were like, she's this perfect character that everyone loves and everyone yells at him for. He's literally the main character. Everyone screams at him for like, being mean to or whatever. And also... the whole thing with Sydney. So I'm actually in the minority. I don't think Carmi and Sid should get together. Like, I don't like them together as that. I think they're soulmates in like a different way. I think
creative soulmate.
They're creative soulmates. I think they're cute. Like, I love their relationship, even though I think she deserves better, even though they're not dating. I think I would love to see... It's funny because I saw a thing where I was like, I don't want to see them together, but I do want to see her in a relationship where he gets like jealous. Like, I want to see that. But instead, it's always thwarted by Claire and Carmi, and Claire is always the thing that gets in the way of Carmi doing what he wants. He's literally leaving the restaurant because of her, essentially. I think that's the idea I'm getting. Again. And then, hold on, just one last thing. Good. So then when Sydney's father has a heart attack and goes to the hospital, who's to the rescue? Claire. I'm like, not for Sydney. Like, I just feel like it's all, like, I don't know. I just feel like Claire is so getting in the way of, like, Sydney. You know what I mean? Like, it's always, like, something with that.
Mm-hmm. And I think, like, him leaving at the end of the, end of the show or whatever, where he's like, I'm going to step away from the restaurant. I do think it is, like... I do think they did that well, where the seed is planted in the previous season, where Olivia Colman's character is like, I ended up closing, it's like one of the best restaurants in the world. Yeah. She was like, I just decided like there are other things that I need to do with my life. Then in this season, Sugar says in like the first episode, she's like, it's okay if you don't love this anymore. And you can tell, like, they talk about like, oh, they went from the chaos to the calm, and like people, maybe like they don't love it anymore. But, and it also is like, he did, I think the previous season when he was with Claire, he had a really great relationship, minus the Claire of this season, and then he ruined it for that. And I think like the thing about Claire is like, I think they're trying to really push us on her sometimes. Yeah. In a way that is like, I don't know. I'm
sick of their fights. Like, I'm sick of their weird, loud arguments where it's like, again, they're cutting each other. Like, it's just unrealistic to me because they were not together that long. So it's just like, why are you're going to leave a restaurant essentially because of like how it's affecting. I think he's leaving because of how it's affecting his relationship with her. That's kind of the idea I got. I don't know. I was confused by the episode, or not confused, but, and it's not the last season. It just got renewed for season 5.
And I'm curious, like, season 5, because Carmi leaves, so, like, and I think maybe it's Jeremy Allen White is very popular right now. He's doing the Bruce Springsteen movie and, like, whatever, so maybe he's just not going to really be in season 5.
I don't know. I didn't get that. I think it'll just focus...
I think season 5 should be the last.
How it ended. Oh, I definitely think season 5 should be the last. And I'm sure, hopefully it will be. But the last episode was interesting to me because, and you kind of have to see it because, yes, it sounds good. Like, it sounds, great that he left. But it was a very frustrating episode because of what you were saying about the arguing. It is like, I was watching with Matthew, who does not watch The Bear. He doesn't really like The Bear. But he kind of will just, like, be in the room while I'm watching it. I actually get, like, do you ever get, like, nervous watching something in front of somebody who makes fun of, like, he makes fun of the bear or whatever, and I'm like, oh, this is just a reason why, that was the chair making this noise. That was just a reason for you to hate the show, because it was just, like, such a frustrating episode. It starts out with Carmi telling, but they're not finishing their sentences at all, as they do.
They never finished.
He is explaining to her that he's leaving, well, because he told her at the end of the last episode, and so now she found out that he's leaving, and Sydney, I actually love Sydney as a character, but sometimes the acting frustrates me a little bit because it feels very, like, she's so, like, high-strung, and but sometimes the acting just doesn't always, like, feel... Like, I think she's a good actor, but I also sometimes think she's not a little bit.
I don't know why people are, like, obsessed with her. Yeah. I think she's fine.
And I think, like, but this was one of those episodes where it really kind of, like, stood out to me, where sometimes I feel like it's, like, her yelling just feels like, unnatural almost. Like, it's just like, okay, this feels like I'm watching, like, a high school play almost. Right. And I think, like, other things like, she had a bottle episode, and I actually did like her episode.
And did you know that her and Lionel Boyce wrote that episode?
I did, and I actually really did like that episode. So I did her. Too. I love her as a character, but sometimes when it's, like, she's arguing with Carmi, I get, like, a little cringed out for some reason. It just always feels, like, very unnatural the way they, like, argue. But, so they're arguing about him leaving, and the thing is, I do get her frustration. This is where I get frustrated at Carmi, because it's like, she stuck with the restaurant. She was going to go with that other guy, but she stuck with the restaurant, and now it's like Carmi's just, like, dipping, and it's like, and he's leaving all this, like, mess to her. Yeah. And that is frustrating
I think it maybe is frustrating, but also good, because it's like, remember so in her bottle episode, she's, like, cooking for her cousin, and she's, like, giving this weird analogy to her cousin, her, like, 10-year-old cousin, where she's like, oh, like, I could sleep over at this house or this house, being, like, an analogy for the two restaurants. And the cousin's like, yeah, but you don't own the house. And so I do think it'll be good, because, like, she will, quote unquote, own it. Whereas, like, it was supposed to always be an equal partnership between her and Carmi.
Like, overrides her.
Always. Yeah. So I think, like, that will end up being good.
That's true.
And I think, honestly, if I were I want to say it's not Ben Shapiro. He's just Shapiro.
No, I know.
First name is
Adam?
I don't know. But so it's this guy who's starting a restaurant. He wants Sydney to come work for him. And so this started last season of her being like, do I want to work there or do I want to work here? And she's, like, stringing this guy along for months. And his reaction, when she tells him, like, actually, I'm not going to, like, sign on.
After she said, let's sit down and talk, like, paperwork or whatever.
Like, and he's silent for so long, and she's like, hey, are you still there? And he's like, yeah, I'm here. I just, like, think you're making a stupid decision. And I'm like, his reaction is completely valid. Like, I can't believe, I was like, are you a child?
No, that's what I know. It's so frustrating, but she did stay. And anyway, so their conversation just, like, it was a bottle episode. So this all takes place outside of the restaurant, in that, you know, they stand out and smoke out there. She's a weird smoker too, which I think is funny they call her out on it, because she smokes a cigarette and she's, like, really bad at it. Like, it just looks stupid. But he actually says that. He's like, you're bad at smoking. But they get into an argument. Then Richie comes out. And again, it's like they're yelling, and you don't really know what they're saying, because they're just...
Yes, which happened with the whole Francine and Sugar thing, where I'm just like, why are these... I don't care why these two friends had a falling out. Who the fuck is this person?
Know they've alluded to her a few times, because she, like, hates her. They've actually mentioned her, like, since the beginning. But
like, why do I care, you know? And why do I care that her and Brie Larson hooked up once, you know?
Right. And the thing, like, it's funny, because I saw this in the article, too, where it was like, instead of focusing on Claire, let's focus on, like, Tina or Pete. Right. We never focus on Pete, who's actually a very interesting character.
He is one of my favorite characters. And I thought, actually, a small detail that I loved is, like, Carmi opens his phone to, like, text Pete, and Pete's name in his phone is Sugar's boyfriend, Pete, ?
I feel so bad for him, but he's, like, such an interesting character, because he's a lawyer, so he's got, like, I feel like they could have done more with him.
You know what I think is interesting is he's the one who always feels on the outside of this, like, little family to me, even though, like, random people who they've just met. Like Sydney feels more in on this family than anyone else does, and I don't.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
I don't know why, or like Francine, or like whoever,
or Claire, and like Pete's an actual family member.
Yes,
he's an in-law, but it's like
and
let's focus on Claire, I guess.
Like, it is crazy. There's this whole moment where again, so we've made it clear that a few months have passed since Carmy and Claire have broken up, which also means like a few months have passed since Sugar had her baby, right? And there's a whole thing where he's like, I haven't seen her.
I know.
My sister, I only have one sibling left because my brother is dead and I haven't seen her new baby. That's fucking sane.
Yeah, it's not like they live in different cities or something.
Yes,
or states.
They talk all the time. Like, that is crazy to me. I'm like, this character sucks.
And then Richie, in the final episode, in the last episode, like Richie comes out and then they start arguing because he learns that Carmy's retiring, and Richie gets like very angry. And the first thing that Carmy says to him, it just was so irrelevant to me. It made no sense. I was kind of like, what is this? Carmy says to him he's like, I was at Mikey's funeral. And like that was supposed to be some big reveal. I don't know why. Okay. And Richie gets like really upset, and then it turns into like a whole thing. They actually have like a very good like heart to heart or whatever, and you find out kind of Richie's like side of things where he feels like he was never like, or you understand why Carmy sort of feels resentment towards Richie because Richie had like a good relationship with his brother that he didn't really have or whatever, like they were close. Anyway, that they go on for that, but I was just like, what is this? Why are we now talking about you were at Mikey's funeral, right? Really? Why does that have to do with the restaurant? Like, it just makes the way they talk like makes no sense sometimes.
It's just
and it's not natural. It is like kind of sometimes I'm like, this just feels like weird writing.
Yes, it does. And I think in the first season or two, so it's interesting. I was listening to this review of it earlier where they were saying, you know how like Carmy changes up the menu all the time, and that's why like it's struggling, and like because the thing is, you go back to your favorite restaurants for like staple meals that they always have on the menu, or you went to the original beef and now you're like, what the fuck is this?
Also, can you imagine how frustrating that would be? On top of that is like, I stick with my same meal when I go to restaurants. Like, right. Can you imagine if every time you went, it was not there?
Yes. And I know he was like, that's what Michelin star restaurants do. And I was like, well, fuck them. Why are they doing that?
Yeah.
But anyways, and they made a good point where they're like, almost, that's kind of how it is with the audience of The Bear, where the first season is like very like the original beef, loud, chaos. We've got beef flying everywhere. The second season is more like, okay, this is more concentrated. We're like really like getting into the artistic. Yeah. Third season, all art. Straight, no humor, all art. Fourth season, we're changing it again. Changing that vibe.
So true.
And I think like it kind of fits with like, oh, like this restaurant is struggling to understand like the vibe and who it is. And like, I think the show is as well.
Yeah. I agree. I think, no, that is actually so true though. That it's like, it doesn't seem to be able to find its tone.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just weird. And we're saying all this. I love the show. Like
I do.
I was actually really into this last season. Like I did watch, like it wasn't like the third season where I was kind of just like whatever. Like I really did like this last season. I love the show overall. I still think the acting is very good. I just think it just doesn't seem to find its footing ever, or it changes up the tone.
It's interesting.
In a weird way.
So I was listening to this interview Eben Moss-Bachrach did with Fresh Air, where he was talking about this season, and he's such an interesting guy because he seems like very serious if you listen to him as an actor. And he said something that actually Idris Elba said similarly, where he's like, I don't really watch it because then if I watch the show or like stuff that I'm in, then I'm just going to be thinking about myself in the scene as opposed to being in it, which is what Idris Elba said. And then he said something honestly kind of similar. And I was like, it almost sounded like the way he was talking about it. Like, I was like, I feel like you're thinking the same things we are. Yeah, like you don't really
like it.
Yeah, and you can tell like even Richie this season was like a more serious Richie.
That's the thing, is he was always sort of like maybe Fack as well, but he was always kind of the comedic element to the show.
And that's what made like him having those moments of emotionality really impactful, because it's like you're taking this funny character and making them emotional.
And he grew. He really grew as a character.
Now he's just straight up emotional, which again, whatever, but I'm like, it doesn't have as much impact.
Yeah, he wasn't not a ton of humor at all with this season with him, and I totally agree. Also funny, like on that same note, like I love him, like I love Eben. I think he's a phenomenal actor, and I like really like him. But it's funny because I heard he's going to be in Fantastic Four, and I heard Pedro Pascal talking about him recently. I think it was Pedro. And he said that Eben is, like, one of the funniest people. Like, he's so funny, and just, like, certain things he says is just, like, so funny or whatever. And I was like, I don't get that from him at all. But
maybe he was, like, dry humor. I don't know.
I think that's what he was saying, but I was like, even though I think as a, like, in stuff, like, in Girls, I thought he was, like, so funny, but just not totally, like kind of subtly funny. Yeah. But I think, like, it just was interesting. I was like, I don't get that from him at all. He seems so serious, like you said.
I could see that.
But I just, one thing I did love about this season, though, I gotta say, I said this to you and Chris, and you guys both, like, roasted me for it. You were like, oh, that's why you like it.
Oh, yeah.
But I was actually, this has been, like, what I really wanted. I've usually they bring Will Poulter back, like, for one episode or whatever. Like, last season, they brought him back in, like, the last episode. And I was like, oh, I kind of wish he was, like, in it, like, more. He was in almost every episode this season.
Okay, I will say, so you said that, and I, like, got halfway through, and I hadn't seen him, and I was like, am I watching the wrong thing?
I think he comes in, like, episode 3 or something.
He didn't come into, like, I think episode 5, where he comes in as a stage.
But he's in, like, he's in at least, like, 3 or 4 episodes.
He was in 2 episodes, and then it was like he wasn't in the wedding episode, and then I haven't watched, like, the last 2. So I thought he was going to be in it more, but yeah, he is in it a lot. But what's interesting is, like, again, with the writing, there's this whole scene of him and Sydney talking to each other where it's supposed to be like they're being playful, and, like, I was like, just, you clearly don't know each other.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is, like, sometimes it feels like things on the show just feel like they happen for no reason, kind of almost, where it's like, okay, these 2 characters don't know each other. I would have loved more conversations between Luca and what's Lionel's character's name? Marcus. I would have loved more between them, because they're the ones who had the original, like, or even him and Carmi, because, like, they had the original relationship. But, like, I was like, why are we trying to, unless the 2 of them are getting together, please give Sydney, like, a boyfriend or something.
I thought her and Lionel Boyce were supposed to get together. And then, like, so, I mean, unless something changes, but I'm like, 2 episodes left, nothing happened with that. Why did we do this?
A lot of things just feel, like, disjointed, unfinished.
And that's what you get when you have a billion bottle episodes. And also, I will say, I was thinking about, like, a lot of people are saying, like, not upset, but, like, the main critique is, like, this season for sure feels like it has no plot. I was like, yeah, because every season has been almost the same plot. And I've never worked in a restaurant, so maybe this is how it is, where they're just like, we have to keep the restaurant afloat. We have to do this with the restaurant. We still, like, every season is like, we have to keep the restaurant afloat. And it's just like, okay, maybe that's how it is, but, like, that plot gets old very quickly.
Right.
It's like, I need some more, like, other things going on. But again...
And because there's really no growth from Carmi, it feels like. So that's the other part of it.
And I think, you know, if you just... It feels more realistic, I guess, but I'm like, I'm not watching TV to be realistic.
Yeah.
You know, like, I want you to tell me a good story, and I want you to do it, like, in a good way. And I'm like, now you're just telling a bunch of stories, sort of, that, like, don't align. I don't know. But anyways, that's all I had to say about The Bear.
Yeah, I'm curious for you to watch the last episode and how you feel about it, like, if you have more to say. But, I mean, that was kind of... It was interesting that the final episode was a bottle episode, too.
Yeah.
It wasn't one take, but it kind of gave that vibe. So, I think overall, like, I do think they need to wrap it up with season 5. I don't want more than that.
Yeah.
I think that's good. I think 4 seasons would have probably been fine for what the show is about. Because again, like you said, all they focus on is if the restaurant is closing or not. So we don't need, like, a million episodes or seasons for that. So give it a watch if you like The Bear.
Yeah, if you
like The Bear. But if you don't, like, again, like, Matthew doesn't, and so when he was watching, it felt like I was like, okay, I kind of, like, it feels like you're being validated why you don't like it.
Right.
So, I don't know.
I feel like this first season was just so good.
It was.
And then I think, like, it's just like I said, like, it's like a imposter syndrome thing where it's like now, like, all the writers and the showrunners are like, oh, we have to make it even better.
You know what's crazy, though? So the first episode, or the first season was great, and the second season I thought was great, too.
Yeah, the second season was good.
But it didn't get... Like, I realized that all those Emmy wins that it got was for the first season. So
I don't think it's going to win for this season at all.
Absolutely not. And it didn't for season 2. So it's like, if it didn't for season 2, because I think the Emmys for, like, it'll be for season 3 this year. Like, which is really confusing.
Really interesting.
I think. I don't know. It's like a little
Yeah.
confusing.
It is one of the few shows where it's like every year they have put out a new season. Every summer it's like a new...
Which is kind of cool. I like the consistency of that.
Yeah.
I'm actually like, I get annoyed when it's like shows do take a long time because I'm like... Ugh.
Yeah.
But speaking of shows that have ended, I don't know about you. I have actually been a very loyal watcher of Big Mouth.
You never talk about it. I did not know this about you.
I've literally, it's been on for 8 seasons, and I have actually watched it since it first came out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I watched the first few seasons. I did really like it. I always have this memory where it was like, I don't know, I was seeing some guy at a time, and I was like, it was put on, and then I like fell asleep, and then I woke up, and it was like just dancing tampons singing, and I remember just being like, have I been drugged? Like, I was just like, what the fuck? It was like such a strange thing to like wake up to.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I've watched it since the beginning, and I think what caused me to first start watching is just that it's Nick Kroll and John Mulaney, and I love them. And it was like a very funny show. When it first came out, I thought it was an interesting, unique, take on like an animated show. Like I loved that it's funny because I do think it actually does teach you a lot about sex education.
It really does. It's crazy. It's like they did it really well.
They did. I think
they taught me more than my school did. I
know. And actually I was watching, so I finished the show and I was watching the second to last episode today during lunch, and I actually was like, wow, this is even teaching me. Like, it was still, like, teaching me. Because it's funny, in the second to last episode, the posthumous episode or whatever it's called. Posthumous.
No, wait.
I think it's the second to last. I think that's what it is.
Oh, I thought posthumous was when you publish something after you've died.
Oh, what am I thinking of? Whatever. Anyway, the second to last
Penultimate.
Penultimate,
yeah.
And they're very, they're always meta, so they, like, acknowledge that it's the penultimate episode. So they're like, let's go through all the unanswered sex questions that we never talked about. Right. And actually, some of the stuff they were saying was, like, teaching me. So I was like, wow, interesting. Okay. It's just funny. I think it's actually really... I think it's interesting. I feel like it's gotten a lot of hate recently because I think it's interesting that, like, Netflix has canceled a lot of shows. For example, like, I remember when Tuca and Birdie got canceled, actual Tuca and Birdie.
Yeah, not Jenny and Georgia.
Yeah, the animated bird show. When it got canceled, people were really pissed because people, like, loved it, and it's, like, a very beautifully, like, watercolor animated show, and people were like, and that ugly-ass Big Mouth is still on somehow. And I kind of get it, like, but I think it's good. I think it maybe went on a little too long. 8 seasons is quite a few. Yeah. Even this, I will say this season, it was like, it took me forever to get through because I was just like, I don't care anymore. I'm over it. But it's also the grossest, nastiest show.
It's so gross. Like the little walking hairy penis that comes around. I actually was like, no, thank you.
There's so many
fucking
times.
of the pillow. I was like, okay.
But that's not even it. Like, there's just like little things. And maybe I get bothered by certain things. Like, but I remember there was... like, there's just certain episodes where I'm just like, that is so gross. Like, it'll be usually like bodily function type stuff, but I'm just like,
some of it is like, okay, like, again, some of it is great because it's like, oh, this teaches you about sex education.
Yeah.
But the thing that's weird is it's like, okay, but this is clearly not a show for children. You know, so who are you teaching?
And it's creepy because they're talking about, like, some of the stuff they're talking about, I'm like, okay, well, they're not adults, though. Even though adults are playing them, it's like they're literal, I think when the show starts, they're like 13. So it's like...
they're hitting... It's about puberty, yeah.
And then they're in high school in, like, the later... like, in this season, they're in high school. And I'm like, yeah.
Which is creepy, but it also, I think, is fair. Because it's like, you're going through that weird, like, puberty sex stuff at that time. And people will be like, oh, they're only, like, 11 years old. And it's like, well, yeah, but I had my period. So, like, I needed to know these things.
No, it is true. No, and I think that is like what.
But it does feel like you would never do that with, like, it's a cartoon. It would never be good if you had like real actors.
Yeah, I mean, because they're showing like 13-year-olds, but like naked, and so it's just like, what? Like, it does feel like creepy sometimes. But I will say overall, I think like it felt like it went on for a long time, and again, like, very gross. It got even grosser as the show went on. I was kind of like, especially this season, that's why I was like, I'm ready for the show to be over.
But I'm
like you. I was gonna tell you, I feel like this is what it's like to like need to finish a show. Yeah. Like, I think you have that too, where it's like, even if you're kind of like over something, you're like, I've got to finish this just to like be satisfied. And it was actually a nice ending to the show, but I was just like, okay, can this be over already?
I would be curious. So it's like about puberty and sex like perspective written by two men mainly, I would be curious what that show would be like written by two women, talking about like their perspective, because they do cover like, I think they do it fairly well. Like they have a female character of like, this is what it's like going through puberty. And they have
women writers on the show.
But I would be curious if like the main women, like if it was just like an all women, like what that would be like, because I think it would be gross and messy in like a different way that I think like, I don't know. I feel like going through puberty as a woman from a woman's perspective is just like.
But they do have that though. Yeah, like, okay, she's not the main character, but like Jessie is like one of the characters. Yeah. So, and then there is like a female, I know that there's female writers. Ao Adabiri, I don't think she's a writer on the show, but like.
I know they have like the floating vagina thing for her. Not Ao Adabiri, the character.
Yeah, I think she is a writer on the show actually. Maybe, I don't know, but she plays Missy now. And so I would say they pretty much cover it. I think they're pretty fair with that. Like it was created by two men, but I do think they have female writers and cover like female characters on the show. Yeah.
But I don't know why I fell off with the show, but I will say like
it would make sense because it's been on for 8 years. I don't know why I continued watching.
I actually don't think that's crazy for an adult animation. Like Bob's Burgers has been on for like a billion, and I love Bob's Burgers, but I've honestly fell off of that a little bit because I'm just like, okay, there's 1,000 seasons.
Yeah. I think that's what I mean though, is like, I think it just feels like I'm like, okay, why am I still watching every season? I don't think I've ever done that with an animated show where I'm like, yes, a new season of this animated show, but for some reason with Big Mouth I always was pretty loyal with it.
Did you ever watch Bob's Burgers?
Not really.
I think
it's funny. Like I've seen like episodes here and there. Yeah. I think it's funny, but it never like caught like really captured.
I think it's like a very much a comfort show. I like that it's funny and it's not like crude like a lot of adult like animations can be. Like I would feel fine like watching it with my like kids sort of. You know what I mean?
I think it's
my non-existent children.
Yeah, I always thought that's the thing is like Big Mouth is so gross that even like I feel like I can't watch it.
I remember like it's been years, but I remember I was like, oh, this is really good, and then I'd be like, oh,
yeah, and like I even couldn't like Matthew's my husband, and even like him like sitting there while I'm watching it, I'm just like, yeah, it's like weird.
But maybe that's a good thing because I think about it a lot where it's like, I think we do need to normalize, like, the grossness of human bodies a little bit, you know?
That's what I always appreciated about it was, like, again, I think it actually could, I doubt, like, teenagers are really watching it. Maybe they are. But I think it could teach people, like, it could teach, like, you know, people going through puberty or whatever, even just adults. Like, I'm like, oh, it teaches you that things are normal. Yeah. Because there's things that you did as, like, a, you know, in puberty that maybe your whole life you grew up, like, not knowing that was normal until then you see that and you're like, oh. So that's what I love about the show, too, is, like, it just, even though as gross as it is, it's like, oh, it, like, normalizes things.
Yeah, because I think especially depending on, like, where you grew up, like, Virginia is an abstinence-only education area. Mm-hmm. So like I remember in 7th grade my sex ed teacher was just like, I don't really want to teach this, so I'm not going to. I missed a whole year of sex ed, and I'm not kidding, like I didn't understand how babies were made for a really long time, like probably a concerningly long time. But and I think like it, like when they do it and they teach it to you, they're like, this is the fallopian tube and this is, and I'm like, I just need to know like
clinical.
Yes. I'm like, I don't need to know the clinical things. I am like 12 years old and things like don't make sense to me. And I just need to like know what's going on, you know? Yeah. And I think like something like that could be good, but maybe like for more of like an 11-year-old perspective. Cause there are certain things in it where I'm like, I remember watching it where I was like, whoa, but like I would never like show my child it, but I'm like, yeah, something like that could be really good where it's like, again, just normalizing like the confusing process of puberty, which I feel like whenever we make these things is always like, this is for adults. And I'm like, I would have loved to have seen this. I don't think it's inappropriate sometimes for like a middle schooler to see something like this where they could be like, oh, that makes sense to me because I'm going through it.
Exactly. I think what ruins it is maybe like the hormone monster talking about like jizzing and stuff. Like I think that can be like, okay, maybe like a kid can't watch that, but I do think overall it actually does teach you a lot. You know what? I saw somebody today that I went to high school with, and I guess he's now a teacher, and he was like, he posted about how he thinks like kids in sex ed should be taught about the time of the month for girls where it's like right before your period and you're like essentially like you're depressed and like your hormones are all over the place and your emotions are all over the place. And I was like, it's so true though, because I do think like people to this day, I don't think men understand periods.
No, I think they don't. Remember when I was saying this weekend, like I just like a few years ago when I explained to one of our guy friends like how a tampon works.
Yeah.
And he was just like, what? And I was like, what?
Yeah.
But why would you need to know? Or like I think about for a long time, like that period, like the PMS period or whatever, like there's this episode of Raymond, Everybody Loves Raymond, where Deborah is like PMSing and she's acting like an absolute psycho, and they like make it funny, and they're like, he's just like, I don't know, are you PMSing? And she's like, why would you ask me that? And like for a long time it's like that's just all we had was like making fun of women for being hormonal. And as someone who is like very like, I know some people like when they have their periods like they're not like super aggressive. I think I texted you this one time where I was like about to start my period. I was like, if Chris came through this door right now, I would fuck him up for no reason.
I get like I actually have like I get depressed. I get like I want to like
I call it my
commit
weepies.
A crime.
I wake up and I'm like, I want to like weep for no reason.
Yeah.
And then it's like, again, which maybe this is TMI, but I was like, actually, it's not TMI. I'm a woman. I have a period, so you know that. Like, I have my period, and then I'm just like, wow. Yeah. Now
like
I'm
nice. The birds are chirping. Like,
but no one, like, people just, they'll be like, in high school, guys would be like, oh, are you about to start your period? Like, it was a joke, and he'd be like, yeah, I am.
Actually, yeah, but it's not funny.
Yeah, it's not funny. I'm gonna fucking kill somebody.
And also, I think...
Sorry, that was aggressive.
But he was saying, too, people were, like, saying, like, oh, I think, like, you should be able to also, like, maybe take days off of school or whatever, you know, whatever. Like, because it's such a different experience. It's not sick, but it's, like, you can't really function necessarily, especially if you're a teenager. Like, I don't know.
That was one thing my mom was really good about when we were younger in middle school and stuff, where we'd be like, I'm really cramping, like I'm really suffering. She'd be like, okay, well, just take a sick day.
Yeah.
And now, every now and then, but I don't have enough sick days to do this at work, like with PTO, but every now and then I'm like, okay, I'm going to like do PTO, because I remember one time it was like I was about to start my period and I just heard the sound of a Teams message. Nothing stressful was happening and I burst into tears. And I was like, I think I'm just going to take a day. I think maybe this isn't good.
If more than 2 people message me on Teams in a day when I'm about to start my period, like, you would think it's like I'm actually in the middle of like World War III. Like, I'm actually so upset. I get so upset.
There's this story from this podcast I used to love called The Guilty Feminist, where she was like, one time, like, I was on a run and I saw what I thought was like a dead dog on the side of the road, and she was like, it ruined my whole day. I started crying. Like, I was like inconsolable, and my boyfriend was like, what's going on? And then she was like, it was a log. It was just something. And I was like, I get that. Yes. Yeah. Like, I literally will sit and I will just cry at videos of just dogs.
I'm not always like that, but that is like sometimes.
Sometimes, yes. And not all women are like that.
No.
# not all women. But like, I just think like, I don't know, having like an understanding for that kind of thing, but also being aware like we should vote women to be president and stuff, because it's like, yes, like you can be crazy, but I'm not going to like start a nuclear war.
Yeah, I mean, there's other people behind you, and clearly like other people are insane too, not just women.
And also props to women. It's like, I'm doing all of this. I'm bleeding out of my body. Yeah. I'm bloated to another pant size. Mm-hmm. I'm doing all these things, and I'm fucking organizing our whole life. I'm like making dinner. I'm like doing my laundry. I'm like crushing it at work. Yeah. Men could never.
No. But to bring it back to Big Mouth, I do think, because we could go on about this all day.
I really could, yeah.
But I will say, I do think like they actually even covered that whole topic this season. Like, Jessie thinks like whatever. It's like a whole thing. I think, so the show, I think overall was good. I think it was a necessary show. I think it got a little too gross, but sometimes like unnecessarily gross. Not just because it was like about like, you know, not even just like to do with like sexual stuff, but it was just like sometimes I'm like, okay, don't be like gross, like ew. But I'm also weird about bodily functions and stuff. Like I'm just you know how I am. But that was my review of Big Mouth.
So this was on the docket like a while ago, and I didn't mention it, but it was like one of the biggest books of the past year. It's All Fours by Miranda July, and it's about a woman who she is experiencing like menopause, but she doesn't realize it. And she says she's going to go on a cross-country trip, but she actually only makes it 30 minutes away. She stays at this motel and has like a sexual like rediscovery. And there are certain things about the book that I really loved, and then there were certain things where I'm like, this character is like kind of insufferable, but I really like these positioning of like sexuality in different stages of your life where, you know, she was like, oh, I talked to my friends about what does menopause mean, and a lot of them were like, oh, it's like awful, like it's going to be a completely different thing. And she was like, but then I interviewed other women and they were like, you know what, like I didn't have cramps anymore, or like I actually felt like better about myself than I ever have, or like putting it in this kind of positive context. I think it's so great that like the thing is, it's like women don't have these forums to talk about it, or like people in general about like these certain aspects of sexuality because we're so taboo about it.
Right. And I think one of the things that like I remember hearing Nick Kroll in an interview talking about how they do show at one point, well, they just, again, the show is focused on like kids going through puberty. So it is sometimes kind of weird when they show them like their bodies, but it's like he kind of was like, you know, emphasizing that it kind of shows like it's not always like a sexual thing.
Right. Bodies don't have to always be sexual.
Right.
It can just be your body.
Yeah, exactly. So
free that nipple.
Free the nipple. But yeah. Ooh. That was kind of it about Big Mouth. That's all I had to say. But it's over, and I thought it was overall a good show. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our other like big blockbuster today is, I think we wanted to talk.
Other big
blockbuster. or whatever. I don't know.
We haven't talked about one blockbuster.
They're all blockbusters to me.
Aww.
Can you call a television show a blockbuster?
That's why I was like, we haven't talked about one.
I want to call them that. I'm going to start Reclaim, like, especially once.
You can't not call Game of Thrones a blockbuster. You
right.
know what I mean?
Once the movie theaters close, like that's what we're going to have to do. Which, let's hope that never happens. Sorry, that got dark.
Don't ever say that. Don't speak that into existence.
F1. I have no interest in seeing this movie.
All that to say is that we haven't seen it and we're not going to. I feel like we set that up to be like, here's our review, and we're like,
here's our uninformed opinions
stupid ass movie
of this movie that we haven't seen.
No, I think the thing about F1 is like when it came out, first of all, I thought it was like a sequel to something, and that's kind of the vibe it gave. I
remember like I said something, maybe it was because I framed it to you where I was like, oh, it's a franchise film, and you were like, what's the franchise? And I was like, no, it just is a franchise.
It is a TM,
yeah. It literally, the logo on the movie is F1, little logo, TM. That's trademark.
Okay.
And it pisses me off. Only Barbie can do that, and it's fine because it was the first one. And now I'm like, it's literally like the thing from the studio where they're just like, we want to create another Barbie.
And it's so uninteresting to me. I was talking to, so like my parents love Ford versus Ferrari. Matthew loves that movie. And I remember, you would think I would love it. I love like Christian Bale. Like you would think that's so, it has Christian Bale and Matt Damon in it. And it's about Ford versus Ferrari.
Okay.
But I had no interest in seeing it. I was like, I don't feel like watching a movie about like cars. Like I just don't care.
I don't care about cars. I worked when I was at the movie theater was like peak Fast and Furious when they were like pumping them out. And every single time like I would clean a theater, I would go to like check the theater and it'd be Fast and Furious. I literally the whole time like it was like my eyes were like marbles in my head. I was rolling them so hard. I was like, I don't care about cars.
Right. And that's like those are just like stupid.
Yeah.
No offense if you love those movies, but like I mean they're obviously not good.
Great soundtracks. Bad movie.
But I think with these, it's like, okay, I can recognize F1 is probably a good movie, but I just have no interest in seeing it.
I don't understand, like, what's the plot? And also, like, hot take, maybe I'm kind of over Brad Pitt a little bit.
I think a lot of people feel that way. I don't think you're the only one, because, so a lot of people are kind of feeling that way, because, so his co-star is Damson Idris, who is a great actor.
Yeah.
And he's like kind of being overshadowed by the Brad Pitt of it all.
Yeah.
When I think people are like, oh, I'd rather see him as sort of the main character.
Right.
And I mean, there's a lot going on with like Brad Pitt, like people like, you know, I think all the stuff that came out about his family and his kids and how he acted towards his kids. I think that's starting to kind of make him not look, you know, he's not sort of the person that everybody loves anymore.
Right. Also, I think, and we talk about this a lot, about, like, we're doing these franchise films, it's all we're doing is, like, sequels, and I think you notice, like, a lot, like, it's all big-name studio movies. So, like, some of them will be, like, younger, where it's, like, Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, but then they're, like, okay, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt, because historically, over the past 30 years, they've brought in a lot of money.
Now,
but it's
Tom
like,
Cruise, they're right about, because people do still love Tom Cruise, but I think Brad Pitt, it's kind of like people are starting to not really care about him anymore, which the thing is, I still think he's a great actor. I'm not going to give that up. Like, I do think he's a good actor, and I actually, like, I really, like, love him as an actor.
Yeah.
How he is as a person, I mean, I don't know him, but it sounds like he might be problematic. So I think people are kind of looking at that as like, okay, these big name movie stars, we just like don't care about those people anymore.
Right, because like, okay, yes, 30 years ago they were a huge movie star, but it would almost be like, you know, in 2000 being like, oh, you know, we're gonna, actually I can't think of any old movie star because
like
I'm not
George
old.
Clooney or, oh, you're saying it back in that.
Yeah, like, and they would never do that. They were like, okay, we have like hot new young stars, and I'm not saying we shouldn't cast older people, but I'm just like, okay, we could put someone else in these roles and not just be like, oh, Brad Pitt, and then like that's all I've seen in the advertisements
is Brad Pitt.
I'm like, what is this movie? What is this about? Like, what's the point?
And it is funny because there is that like, I love you, Mom, if you're listening, but I think like my mom like is wanting to see it because I think because of Brad Pitt, or she'll still like love if like George Clooney is in something, she like loves it or she wants to watch it, and I just kind of like, I mean, I used to be fans of them, but I just don't really care about them anymore. Like, there's just so many other people now that I'd rather see.
And I feel like it's because a lot, like, I want to see, and it's not even the people that I want to see. I feel like the old box office blockbuster people are in these movies that are, like, franchise, like, again, the 17th Mission Impossible, which was, like, fine, like, that you guys said. F1, which is whatever, you know? Whereas I feel like some of the new, like, younger people are in, like, more interesting films. Yeah. Where I'm like, okay, this is a film versus just we're gonna shit out this movie.
And I like when like Brad Pitt is in like Quentin Tarantino movies. Like I like that. But I think like when agree. That's how I feel about F1, where it just feels like it's the kind of movie that people would have wanted to see in the early 2000s or whatever, where it's like, okay, we're kind of like, I'm just not interested in that. But I think there is a certain demographic that is still into that. So we're kind of joking, like, I almost feel like that this movie is sort of made for that generation. Like, I don't know.
I think one of the actors who does it well, despite maybe there's probably problematic things going on, but I think Leonardo DiCaprio, in general, he is one of those blockbuster actors who also chooses, like he is picky and choosy, I think, with the things he does. Whereas, like, I'm like, okay, Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, they're just like, I'm going to do a film that's going to make money. Right. Which is, we all need to make money.
I am a movie star. And Leonardo DiCaprio is a movie star, but
he's an actor.
He's an actor, and he takes interesting roles.
He's an officer and a gentleman.
Yeah.
But an actor and a movie star. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so I think that's interesting. And also, I think what's interesting is, Simone Ashley, she was, in this film, she was supposed to be Damson Idris's love interest in the film, and she was completely cut from it. And it's interesting because I can't remember if you shared this TikTok with me or if I shared it with you on Instagram Reels, because I'm...
Probably both. I think we tend to do that. Yeah. I share something with you on TikTok, and then you share something with me on Instagram.
And you're like, oh, I already sent this to you. And I'm like,
yeah.
No, I have to cut I literally, once you sent that, I got on TikTok, and I got sucked in, and it, like, ruined my whole day.
I don't really go on TikTok as much anymore.
It was really bad.
Yeah.
But anyways, this person, they were talking about how we're doing all these, like, really, like, wealth franchise, like Sirens, Succession, Your Friends and Neighbors, or whatever, and it's a way to kind of like be like, oh, we're actually writing stories about white people so we can cast white people.
Well, it's like they're supposedly making commentary. They're supposedly commenting on, like, you know, rich white people and just like the, you know, that kind of the society and like just the problems or whatever. But it's like, okay, I see your commentary, even White Lotus, and I love White Lotus. I actually love, like, all of these shows, but it does feel tiresome when you're like, okay, it's the same thing over and over. Your Friends and Neighbors, Perfect Couple, like, all of these shows, to me, that's when you guys first talked about Sirens, that was kind of actually my thought, sort of, was I was just like, okay, I feel like these shows are all just the same at this point.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like you were just kind of saying, like, it is a way to, like, really get around not hiring, you know, people of color. And
because they're going to be like, oh, well, this is actually a commentary on, like, bad, white, rich people.
And it's like, okay, but you like, know that people are going to watch it and still be, like, attracted to these people. You know what I mean? Like, to, like, do these characters. And so even though we were supposed to not like them, we are still watching it and liking them. Meanwhile, you could be hiring, you know, people of color in this show.
Right. And who also have wealth and can, like, play these roles.
Exactly.
But we are just, it's interesting. So, and in that video, they were talking about, they were like, and Simone Ashley got cut out of F1, which is another way of like cutting another person of color out of this movie. She's the only female lead, I think, in the movie, and it's kind of wild that she got cut from it, and she was doing press tours from it, and I think it was like during the premiere, and I could be wrong, so someone fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was during like the premiere of it, or maybe a little bit before when she was like learned like, oh, all of her scenes had been cut, and it was actually funny.
How was she doing press for it?
Because I don't think they had, like, they weren't doing, like, they weren't showing the film yet. You know, it's like a pre-press, like a pre-release tour.
Yeah, but surely
And she was at the premiere, and she wore this beautiful gold dress, and, like...
I wonder if they had done a test or something, like a test screening.
I don't know.
And then they cut her. Oh, obviously, I'm sure that's what happened, but...
This video, it actually made me laugh. They were like, things that got more screen time than Simone was, like, Tom Cruise's watch and this random dog that's, like, in the video. And
you mean Brad Pitt?
Or, sorry, Brad Pitt's watch. And the director, I forget his name, but he basically was just like, oh, like, it didn't, like, there was something with continuity, like, and it just didn't, like, with the story or whatever. But I'm just like, okay, I'm here to tell you, she is one of the most beautiful people you will see on screen. Yeah. She looked great in Sex Education. In Bridgerton, watching it the whole time, I was like, I want to die. She's so beautiful. And to not have her in this F1 movie, which is like a very classic, like, this is Cars and we're going to have like a hot woman in it, which is whatever. I'm like, that's crazy. And she was very nice about it. She was like, you know, like, I'm just honored that they like asked me to be in the film, whatever.
I mean, she got paid, so I don't know.
Yeah, she gets paid either way.
But you're not getting the, you know, exposure.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting, too, to cut a female lead. I had no idea that was the character. Because it's like, you know, people do get cut from movies, but like, or, you know, scenes get cut or whatever, but to completely cut
her whole character out?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's so wild. And so I'm just curious.
Or, sorry, I meant to say like a love interest. That's crazy.
I'm curious, like, what her, like, scenes would be like in the movie. You know, like,
well, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie,
I have no desire to see it. But I just, like, again, not to, like, drone on, but I'm just like, why do we need to do this movie that's like a franchise film?
Yeah.
More one.
Sure.
Also, tonight we are drinking a Joseph Handler Riesling. It says The Flying Wine Trader is their tagline.
It's one of our many leftover
from
wines.
The lake. This is the lake wine.
Thank you so much. I said we.
And Trader Joe's.
Your wine.
Well, I brought it for us.
Right.
But anyway, so if you saw F1...
I'm sorry. Give us a, you know...
Let us know.
I'll put something on the Instagram and maybe get, like, a poll from you guys or ask, you know, how you guys felt about it. Sorry that I didn't do that before this, but...
It's okay.
I'm just curious what people think, because I mean, I'm sure, the thing is, I'm sure it is a good movie. Like, I recognize that it probably, like, if you're interested in it...
It probably had a huge budget, you know? It probably was a good...
And if you are interested in it, you probably did like it. Like, I'm sure, like, again, my parents want to see it, and they probably, therefore, will like it.
Yeah.
But I just am like... I just thought it was interesting, because I think so many of us were kind of just like, we're not into this.
Yeah.
Like,
I just don't care. And so, to go into another franchise that I think people do care about, though, I have been thinking a lot about who's going to play the next James Bond, as someone who's seen none of them.
Yeah, it's interesting, because you texted me about that, and I was like, interesting that you care about that.
It's not that I care, I just have strong opinions. And, so my mom, like, thought that women were portrayed really poorly in James Bond, so we never watched it growing up, which you and Chris have confirmed, like, it's not great, but it's gotten better. But, yeah. So they're gonna do a new James Bond, and it's interesting, like, the people who are, like, front runners for it, and, like, one of them was Josh O'Connor, and I was like, that's interesting.
So, who is the front runner? Because I feel like I've just heard, like, where's the source from? Because I've heard so many different front runners.
Yeah.
At one point,
they've confirmed no casting.
Aaron Taylor Johnson, I thought, supposedly signed something. Like,
I don't know.
On for it. So I'm curious where that went. I literally, for a while, was seeing articles about how he had signed on for it. So now I'm confused why we're, again, talking about front runners.
People keep talking about Tom Holland. And again, I don't know where and it's just like...
And that would not be good. I don't think... The thing is, like, it's hard because we're coming off of Daniel Craig, who did it for years, and he actually was physically a perfect James Bond. He fit the role, again, physically, and also... his personality just really fit the role. He was funny, but like a dry humor.
Yeah.
Kind of a dark humor a little bit. he was so good, and it's just hard. The thing is, I think we have to do, instead of getting a famous person who, like we always talk about with Marvel, it's sort of like they sign their soul away because now they'll be playing this, they'll be known for this character. I think because of that, we need to get somebody unknown, because Daniel Craig actually was kind of unknown before James Bond.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
He was he was in like British stuff, but like he wasn't famous until James Bond.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, it's strange to me that we keep naming all these famous people and throwing all these names around when I'm like, it should just be somebody unknown again.
I think it's just people are really in love with the character of James Bond. Like, it is a cultural touchstone, so people feel it's kind of like how I feel whenever they do an adaptation of like a book that I've read, where I'm like very invested in who they cast as the characters. Not Joey King for anything ever, please. So
I think what it has to be, if it's not somebody unknown, I do think it needs to be somebody who, like, we know because we are obsessed with people, or I'm at least obsessed with people, but that not a lot of people know. So
interesting.
Yeah. So like,
because I have a very I truly,
you have a short list.
I have one person.
Okay.
And I truly think, having again seen none of these movies,
okay,
but I'm just like, the vibe, everything. Do you know who it's gonna be?
No, but I'm curious why when you say the vibe, it's like, if you've never seen it, how do you know what the vibe
like
is?
Kind of like hot and like
okay,
suave, but also like can do.
I know who it is.
Idris Elba.
So okay, that was a name thrown around for a long time for some reason. I don't know why. Like, where did we get that from? And I'm saying,
I think people just thought he fit the vibe.
Okay, and so
he's British.
Okay, and I love him. I actually do. For a while, I thought, yes, that's great. Mm-hmm. I think he's maybe a little too old at this point, because that name was thrown around, I mean, like, maybe even 10 years ago, people were saying him. And I think at this point, he's, like, a little too old.
And I don't know if he would be interested in the role, because he was on Amy Poehler's podcast, Good Hang, this past week, and he said something about James Bond. He's like, let's not put that in the ether or something like that. And I was just like, that's interesting. Would you not want James Bond? I think he maybe, like, literally is a little too old, but I think, like, physically he could do it, because he doesn't look as old as he is.
Yeah, and he's, like, very suave, and, like, I love his accent. And I think he would be good.
He does a good smolder.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think I always was like, oh, that would be a good next person. At this point, though, I do think, like, literally, I think it's just kind of like to pass that almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting to have to have a person of color.
I think it should be.
It never has been. Here's the thing, though. I'm not going to say this myself. I'm going to quote Trevor Noah, because this really made me laugh. He said in a stand-up one time that, like, he was talking about, again, this was years ago, so this has been a rumor for, like, years, but he was talking about Idris Elba playing the next James Bond, and he was joking that, like, it would just be funny, because James Bond does take place usually in, like, he goes to, like, you know, like Scotland or whatever. Like, he's from Scotland, I think, originally, or whatever. And so it's like, he's in all these places, like, he wouldn't really blend in necessarily. He's a spy, so it just was kind of funny.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't know. I mean, they could also obviously, like, change the storyline, so it's not, like, a huge deal. But I did just always think that was kind of funny. But
I just think, like,
I think it could be a person of color. Like,
I just think he would be so perfect for it.
Oh, I know who. Okay, it would be good to have somebody like Dev Patel. I used to think
think he's so hot.
Well, now he's in all these things with
and he's fit. We saw it. Okay, Monkey Man is my only action movie I would recommend.
That movie.
What? I thought you thought it was okay.
I thought it was okay. I thought he was, like, I'm such a fan of him, and I thought it was, like, kind of interesting, but I really just don't like action movies like that.
I don't either, and that's why I was like, I'm shocked that I liked this. Like, it's the only action movie kind of I would ever like.
I think he would be a really good James Bond.
I love that you just, we're putting this out into the way.
Okay, so I think Dev Patel might be better.
It has to be. I haven't seen him on any of the short lists.
There were other people
that are unconfirmed.
I thought, okay, here's the thing. This is crazy of me to say, because it's, again, if I'm going to say Idris
Elba. Put it out there.
No,
put it out there.
because you're going to be like, no. If I say Idris Elba might be too old, then I also should say that this person is too old. But when those Matthew McFadyen commercials were out with him in the car, do you remember his car commercials?
I don't think I saw them.
What car? It was a type of car he was doing commercials for with for a while, and he was wearing a suit, and he was like walking around doing his watch. I was like, oh my god, that man should play James Bond. Like,
but the thing
he
is,
was just so hot. But I think he's a little too old for that.
But also, outside of Mr. Darcy, I feel like he plays kind of like
goofy characters,
goofy roles, which is weird because I don't see him as a goofy person.
He's either very serious or very goofy. Yeah.
It just made me mad when I saw when I saw Josh O'Connor, and I was like, this man played Prince Charles. He cannot be James Bond.
I don't think it should be Josh O'Connor.
Again, Ratatouille ass. I love him. Sorry, no, I like him.
I think he's so hot. Actually, I'm obsessed with Josh.
I don't think he's hot. I think he's a good actor.
But I think he's hot in like a different. Really, there's times where I'm like, oh my god, he's so hot. But okay, I digress. I don't think he should be James Bond. I think that would be. There's somebody who I keep seeing. And I think Aaron Taylor Johnson, I'm actually not the biggest fan of Aaron Taylor Johnson. I think he's actually kind of a boring actor.
People have been saying Jacob Elordi, and on the opposite end, I'm like, he's too young, but I guess he's the same age as Josh O'Connor. I'm like, I don't think he would. Just because he's hot doesn't mean.
He's also another one where he wouldn't blend in because he's too tall. Like, he wouldn't, he couldn't be a spy.
Yeah. Also, Matthew Good from the Department Q, I was like, he would make a really good James Bond.
He would make a good James Bond.
He has the eyes, like, he has, like, spy eyes, you know what I mean?
I know.
I'm making eyes at you. Can't see me.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
I'm thinking of, like, who I've been seeing. But, yeah, Dev Patel, I was like,
interesting. I haven't seen him in this trailer. And then people were saying, like, should it be, like, a female James Bond? No. Jamie Bond?
No, and I'm going to say no because I think that somebody should be writing something specific to women. Like, I don't think we need to. I actually, you might disagree with this. I actually cannot stand when it's like we're trying to make something.
I actually agree.
Feminine cast is something like, I'm like, no, let's just do.
Why can't we create original content for women and it be successful? Which it would probably be if we wrote something original. If it was something
original, if it was something different, yeah. But I think, honestly, I do think if they tried to do like a female James Bond, it would piss people off, which is like, it shouldn't piss people off, but I do think it would be like, let's just not. But I like there was something, it was called Bond something, where it was going to be like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, which I was hearing that, like, I love Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but I'm like, when I heard that she
all the things she's done recently,
that Amazon contract she has or whatever, I just think, I'm like, we don't need that. Yeah, she's too goofy for that. Like, she's too funny. Like, that's not what
I think she was in a James Bond or something.
No, she wasn't. She was she?
I don't remember.
But she was, like, she was in the new Indiana Jones, and I was
that's what I'm thinking about.
Stupid.
Which I will say, okay,
and I love her. I'm not, like, being, like, I love her, but I'm just, like, we don't need her to be the next James Bond. Like,
after
what are you talking about?
Hating on all these franchise films, I do think maybe I want to see Jurassic Park purely for Jonathan Bailey.
Really? And
his little clarinet.
I don't feel that way, actually.
I fucking love him. Sorry.
I think he's fine. I'm not as big of a fan as most people are. I think he's a great actor, but I'm not, like, super, it's so strange. I think he's, like, he's one of those people who it's, like, he's so attractive that I'm, like, not attracted to him.
I think he is, like, uniquely attractive.
He's just, like, outwardly handsome.
I guess. I don't know, but he gives, like, a different vibe. And maybe it's because he's gay that he gives, like, a different, like, attractiveness where it's like, oh, I know that I can never get him, but, like, I can pretend. And also he plays like a good, like, I love seeing a guy that can pull up like a pair of glasses and read a book and be like, ooh.
So you know what I love about him though is that we've made a gay actor a movie star. Yes. And I think, and I was wondering, I think there's a lot more, I'll just say it bluntly, I think there's a lot more gay people in Hollywood than people let on. Like, I think a lot of people are hiding their sexuality, and that's understandable because I think, especially in Hollywood, I don't think people are at risk of, being
cast in things,
being typecast or not being cast in things. But I think Jonathan Bailey has, like, sort of shown that that's not true.
And I love that we can get to this point where, one, we're casting gay actors in gay roles.
Yeah.
And two, like, then we can also cast them in straight roles.
Yeah.
It's like, God, you would have loved that show, The Other Two, because the guy who plays Drew, he's gay, and he's always just, like, there's this episode where it's, like, he's in a commercial for, I don't know, it's like a Pepto-Bismol type thing, and it's, like, he smells a fart or something, and then the feedback is, like, you're playing it too gay. And he's like, I'm smelling a fart. What do you mean? And, like, I think for a long time, and probably still, and to some degree, like, that's what it is. But I love that we're getting to a place where it's like, yeah, you can play gay, you can play straight, you can, like, and we'll still love you.
And I think there might be a bigger conversation around that, just because I think Jonathan Bailey might just be able to do that more than other gay men. And I mean, I don't know, but I think...
The first thing I ever saw him in, he was gay.
Oh, the Phoebe Waller-Bridge thing. Yeah. I never watched that.
But he also... Well, he was technically straight, hiding that he was gay, sort of. So, I don't know.
The first thing I saw was Bridgerton, but
yeah. But
I think so. I do think I'm not interested in seeing that. I'm going to be honest.
That's fine.
But
maybe I'll see it by myself. I've only seen parts of the first Jurassic. What?
I think
Jurassic World.
Jurassic
Park.
The original is Jurassic Park.
Sorry. Yes.
You know what's funny is, like, people are gonna be like, are gonna freak out when I say this maybe, but, like, I've seen the first Jurassic Park a couple times, and every time I see it, I'm like, wow, this is a good movie. Like, I always forget. Yeah. It's obviously a classic, but I'm just not really into it.
I'm not either. I don't care. I would purely be seeing this. I'm pulling a Molly where I'm like, yeah,
I feel.
Where I'm like, I just want to see Jonathan,
and I love
his joy at playing the clarinet on that thing. I literally was like, replace me with my viola. That would be me as like a fully grown adult, where I'd be like, holy shit. And just hear, like, seeing him, like, he was like literally rocking back and forth with his clarinet, like playing it. I was like, ah! I also love, I think it was like, I can't remember if it was him and Pedro Pascal talking to each other, if they said it separately. They're like, why is everything like a sexy little whatever? He was like, why are they sexy little glasses? I'm just wearing glasses. Why are they sexy little boots? And I'm like, because they are.
Yeah. I don't know, it's funny. I just don't feel that way about him. But I think he's good. Like, I do think he's a good actor. But I just I'm not like one of our friends sent us, it was friend of the pod, Megan. I think, unless it was you. Friend of the pod, Megan, sent me the chicken shop date. Like, he was just
I need to watch it. I haven't watched it yet.
And, like, I kind of was like...
It was me, actually. I remember because you were like, oh, really? Or something. Anyways.
But then I think she did send me one, too. And I was kind of like, yeah, heart. But I was just like, I just don't.
I love him.
Oh, no, it wasn't you. It was her, because I remember I got a message. It was like, I could say it was a chicken shop date post, and she was like, yes, or something. And I got so excited because I'm like, who is this? Is it Will Poulter? Like, I got so excited. And it was Jonathan Bailey. I'm just like, okay.
He just seems like he's a nice guy.
He does seem really nice.
And that's also a big thing for me. Like, if an actor knows that he's hot, like Austin Butler, I kind of don't care about, because I'm like, you just know you're hot, and I don't care.
But Austin Butler seems so kind. I actually think he seems so nice,
actually,
and he's so interesting to me. Like, yes, he's a little cringe with the, like, voice and method acting, whatever, but I also think he seems like a genuinely kind, like, quiet, soulful person. Like, he seems really emotional or whatever, or in touch with his emotions. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Austin Butler, but I'm glad for you, though. I'm glad you're having this experience that I often have and often get made fun of. Actually, I did want to see, I'm in with you on this, because I want to see the new I Know What You Did Last Summer, purely because somebody is in it that I think is hot.
Who?
He was actually one of my men of the week one time. It was Jonah Howard King. If you looked him up, he's the one from Little Mermaid.
We haven't done, I love him.
Yeah,
he's
in it.
Cute.
And it's like, apparently it's like gonna be terrible. I think it's gotten not great reviews.
You haven't done your man of the week in so long.
I know, I often want to, and like we just never get to it.
Just put it on the list.
I do, but sometimes
put it on our sexy little list.
Sometimes we don't get to it. Like, it's literally on the list a lot.
But anyways, so speaking of something like I wouldn't recommend, okay, I'm not going to talk about this like too much, because again, I didn't think it was very good. So The Survivors on Netflix has gotten amazing reviews, and I truly don't know why. It's an Australian murder mystery show.
And I was like, how did you even come about this? I've never heard it. I've never heard
that algo gets me. And I also I was like, oh, maybe I'm interested in this. And then I saw like a Netflix planted article where they were like, The Survivors is one of the best mysteries of this year. I was like, I'll give it a try. So I kept watching. It was one of my lunchtime shows. And I love Australian television. Like, I will say, like, I've watched like a few different shows in Australian television where I'm just like, this slaps. This is very good.
Yeah.
This was not. And I don't understand why people fucking loved it. So it's based on a book by Jane Harper, and it takes place like 15 years after there's like a flood where these two boys drown, and his brother, like they're trying to save his brother who's like in these caves, and they drown while doing it, and then also another girl at the same time disappears. So then fast forward 15 years later, the brother who has survived comes back with his wife and his baby for like his dad has dementia, so they're like trying to help out the mom, whatever. And the way that people talk about these deaths, I'm like, no, like I understand, like it was probably very upsetting at the time. It's been like 15 fucking years.
Yeah.
And you would think it happened 6 months ago. It wasn't where they were like, you're back in this bar? You who caused those boys to die? Yeah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's 31 years old with a baby. What? Move on with your fucking life. But anyways, so then there's this girl who's like investigating the disappearance of the girl who disappeared 15 years ago. Nobody ever talks about her because they never found her body. And she gets murdered on the beach.
Not the lake, though?
Not the bush. You know, they do that in Australia, like, out in the bush.
Yeah.
That was bad. I'm sorry. And so they're, like, trying to figure out who murdered her. And it's all, like, you know, as a typical mystery story goes. And I just am like, I don't understand. Like, they're like, maybe it was the dad who had dementia and he didn't realize he was doing it. Maybe it was this person who didn't blah, blah, blah. And it comes out to be a very, like, stupid, I think, conclusion. And like there are certain things where and they set it up to like maybe be like I think a season 2 or something. Like it got such good reviews where people were like, this is like a really uniquely written mystery show. I was like, it's not. I don't care about any of these characters. The girl who died I've known for 0.2 seconds, and I know her from this show called The Wilds. I'll be honest, no offense to her, she's an incredibly annoying face. And I was just like, I don't care about this. Like, why? I don't understand why it's getting such good reviews. And also, this is what I was telling you, I literally looked up like the population density, like dispersion of Australia, because I was like, they're going from one place to another. It's all oceanside. I was like, oh, that's right, Australia in the center, apparently a hell pit. Like nobody lives there.
Yeah,
everybody lives by the ocean. And it's just, I just don't know why it's getting so many good reviews. I'm here to say, like, don't watch it. Again, I'll recommend other Australian things to you. Glitch? I fucking loved Glitch. That's like from 7 years ago. That's the one where it's like people in this town, I think in Tasmania, like come back from the dead randomly and they can't figure out why. Wellmania was so good. I really enjoyed that. I
have never heard of any of these shows.
I don't do things with my life.
But I guess the algo, but like, I'm just like, how do you get like Australian stuff recommended to you? Like, I don't think I've ever.
I listen to a lot of British and like Australian podcasts.
Oh, okay.
I actually can't think of a single American one I listen to besides Giggly Squad, I'll be honest.
Do you think they're getting nominated at the Astro Awards?
I don't know why people are sucking this show's dick. Like, I just don't get it. I'm like, it was fine. The acting was okay. Like, I just, and again, I was like, why? Okay.
It's giving kind of teen. Is it like a teen?
It felt like a teen show because the murder takes place when they're teens, but then I'm like, none of these teens left town. Yeah. They all the people involved in this disappearance and the death of these boys stayed in town, and then the brother comes back and we're all just here still talking about them. Like, people, and they're like, it's a small town. I'm like, we live in a small town. There are tragedies. And then I wouldn't be talking about it 15 fucking years later, I'll be honest. Like, that's insane. Yeah. Like, if it was my child, if it was my brother, yes. But I'm like, for a random person to be like, that's the man who was in the cave that they were saving when they died. And it's like, get a life. I don't know. Like, that's crazy. So anyways, don't fucking watch it. I thought it was bad. Don't listen to Netflix planted shows, whatever. But speaking of shows that have gotten interesting reviews, The Last of Us just announced that their creator, Neil Druckmann, recently announced that he's leaving the show. So already, like, as we have a Diet Pop episode, go listen, on The Last of Us, they have horrible, like, not horrible, but the viewership of the last season went down significantly. Now the creator is leaving HBO, and he says he's going to be stepping down from his creative duties because he wants to focus on Naughty Dog, which is like video games that he makes for Sony. But what does that mean for season 2? Or season 3, sorry.
Pedro Pascal is looking down on us and saying, and just like, he's just looking down on all this and he's just like, thank God I left.
Yeah, he's just like, you should follow me where I go.
Yeah,
I think so.
I think...
The thing is, like you said, Pedro Pascal bounces around from a lot of things, but
really
I think he knows when to leave a party, you know?
It seems like, because I said, I'm like, Pedro Pascal never survives any movie or show he's in.
But he gets out before the ship goes down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, true. But I think, it's interesting that Neil is leaving. And so, did you say this about Hallie Gross?
The executive producer, Hallie Gross, is also leaving. She said, and I really don't get this, I couldn't find any more information. She said she wants to make space for what comes next. I literally wrote whatever that means.
She's in a feud or something with
somebody.
somebody.
And it's like, what does that mean?
Yeah. I think it's interesting because, you know, as you guys know now, I did not really like season 2. Yeah. I liked a couple episodes here and there, mostly
and
ones
you're not
with Joel.
alone.
And it wasn't just because of Joel. I mean, I don't think this was like Bella Ramsey's fault at all.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really like where the show was going. I didn't think the writing was as good. I didn't care about the characters that were on there at that point. So the thought of like watching season 3 now, and again, Caitlin Dever, great actress. I think she's phenomenal, but I don't care to watch a show. Now even Ellie won't be in it. Like, I don't care about what comes next at all. So I'm like, I'm curious, like, why they would be leaving though, because I mean, like, there's got to be other, like,
I think like we are getting the PR answers and there's other things going on. Like, this show already has like a hard uphill battle with the pivot it takes in the storytelling. Like you saying, like, the main characters aren't even like the focus of the next season, and so it's just interesting to see that they are also leaving. I think this was supposed to be like HBO's like big show, you know, like Succession is done, Game of Thrones is done. And I'm just like, you know what? Let's put more focus on the Gilded Age if we're going to do all this.
So I'm like, should I watch the Gilded Age? Because for some reason it's all over my Twitter feed.
If you like Downton Abbey, I think you would like it. It's the same creator. The thing is, it really takes like till season 2 to get like a plot going, but it's like vibes, you know? Like, it's my comfort zone, one of my comfort shows. Like, I love rewatching it because the thing is, even like the most stressful of plots aren't that stressful. It's like a bunch of wealthy people like doing wealthy people things, but it's lovely to watch.
I was gonna say that's the same for Downton Abbey, but there were some serious plots in that show. But I think if it's the same creator, I definitely would give it a try. But for some reason, it's like showing up, and I love Carrie Coon.
Yeah, she does a. Oh. She is super cunty in this, and in like the best way. I love her, and also I realized the person who plays her daughter is the girl from American Horror Story, who's in like all those seasons. She's like the main character. She's the daughter of the parents in the first season of American Horror Story.
Tessa Farmiga?
Yes. I literally was like, because she plays like a nice girl, like a nice, normal, not possessed girl.
She's always a nice girl on American Horror Story. She's always just kind of like the same character.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, she's not like
haunting.
Yes, there's no haunting. She's just like, I just want to like find love. Come on, mama.
Lovely.
I'm just like, whoa, okay. And Meryl Streep's daughter is in it. She does a great job. Yeah. I love it.
I might give it a try because again, I do love it's Regency era, right? Or
no, sorry. It's more like turn of the century, so it's early 19th century. There's a whole thing where it's like they literally all are gathering to like see electricity turned on.
Yeah, that's
great.
Fun. I would love to watch that.
It is just beautiful.
I might give it a try. How many seasons are there? 3?
This is the 3rd season, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fun. And that's like part of why I wanted to go to like Newport, Rhode Island for The Bachelorette, because like 2nd season, like a huge chunk of it takes place. And I'm like, beautiful. It takes
place in England for some reason.
No, it's New York. New York society.
That makes total sense. I just keep picturing British.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway.
It's all the corsets.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like Elizabeth Swann.
Yes. But anyways, so.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of all we, I think, had to say about The Last of Us. But I think it's just interesting that so many people are jumping ship.
Yeah.
And I think that's telling. Obviously I will not be watching this 3rd season. Like,
I just feel for Caitlin Dever because I'm like, let's give her a fair shake.
And this is what I was saying
deserves it.
when we talked about it with Ty on that Diet Pop episode. I do think it's interesting that she's gonna do this show because I think she seems like a very booked and busy actor, so
Yeah.
it seems kind of surprising to me that she would
I don't
put
think
all her, like, I don't know, it just seems weird.
Actually, never mind. I was gonna say I don't think I've seen her lead a show, but she just did Apple Cider Vinegar, and she was great in that.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
I never saw that, but yeah.
But another thing we're both interested in is the best-selling book from Jeanette McCurdy, I'm Glad My Mother Died. Glad My Mom Died. Why did I say so formal? Which they just announced, I didn't know was getting an adaptation, which will be interesting.
A TV show adaptation.
Yeah, and Jennifer Aniston's going to play the mom.
And it's weird because they keep saying, like, whenever I see anything about the show, it's just that Jennifer Aniston is in it. And I'm like, well, obviously, I mean, she's a character. The mom is a character in the book, but it's obviously the main character is Jeanette McCurdy. So I'm curious, is Jeanette McCurdy playing herself? Or
I don't think she should.
I don't think so either.
I actually can't think of any, like...
I mean, maybe they just have an unknown or something.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I just was curious because they keep saying Jennifer Aniston. And I'm like, okay, well, have they just not cast somebody yet in Jeanette McCurdy's
Who's going to play Ariana Grande?
Do you think they're going to touch that?
It's a chunk in the book. Like, it's a huge...
I hope it's good. I hope it's not just, like,
yeah, because I did like the book. I have thoughts on it, but I did like the book.
The book was really riveting. It actually was one of those books I felt was very, obviously it's triggering for multiple reasons, but it was actually really hard for me to get through because it was so, it was just a really hard read.
I think it's like one of the first things I've seen where it's like, oh, we're actually discussing and naming like narcissistic mothers and like that impact, which I think is really interesting. Or like sometimes like if you think of like the Yaya sisterhood where you're like, oh, that's a narcissistic mom, but I don't think we have the language for it, where I'm like, oh, this is really like delving into it.
And not even just so the effects of a mother on somebody who... the thing about Jeanette McCurdy is I really like how she writes about herself. Like, she's not... I mean, she was obviously a victim and all this, but she's a very complicated person.
Yeah. I will say, and I said this when I read it, I do wish she had written it maybe like 5 to 10 years later, because I felt like, and this is not a spoiler because it's in the title, but her mom dies, and I feel like we don't get a lot of reflection on like the actual like death of her mom and how it impacted her. It's kind of like a... like, yeah, my mom died, and then I just kind of, like, was able to breathe, and then I, like, continued living my life and did these things, if I remember correctly. I read it, like, over a year ago.
But it's not, I mean, it was pretty complex. Like, even after she died, I mean, she had that breakdown at her funeral, and, like, it was actually pretty, even just the death, it wasn't just, like, like, she's now happy that her mom died. Like, it took her a while to really get to that place. And it's not, the thing is, it's called that, but I think she is glad that her mom died, I think, but she's also... like, there's a lot of layers to it. Yeah. And I think,
it'll be interesting to see Jennifer Aniston portray, and I like Jennifer Aniston. I don't know if she's
that good of an actor, though.
And also to play, like, again, this mom is kind of portrayed as, like, a very, like, walking mess, kind of, like, is literally, like, a hoarder, whatever. I'm like, I haven't seen Jennifer Aniston play a role where she's not, like, polished.
That's what I'm curious what the tone will be. Like, will it be... like, I hope it's not... I hope it's dark and serious. Like, genuinely.
Me too. Because even I think about, like, in We're the Millers, Jennifer Aniston plays a stripper, and it's, like, the most unbelievable stripper you've ever seen.
I think Jennifer Aniston's a good comedic actor. Like, I think some... Like, I think in some ways she's very natural, but other times I'm just really not a... I'm really just not a huge, like, fan. I don't care about Friends. Like, I've never really cared about the stuff that she's in, because I think she's fine, but I just don't think she's, like, amazing. So I'll be interested to see, like, what this will be exactly, but how do you feel? I'm interested. I think it's nice that, you know, Jeanette McCurdy, also a big part of the book is how she was upset about where her career went, because she was, like, a Nickelodeon star. There were promises made to her that she would be huge, and then got overshadowed by Ariana Grande, who was her co-star in a show, obviously got overshadowed by Ariana Grande, and her career went a completely different direction. And so it's kind of nice to see, like, Jeanette McCurdy now being able to have this career, I guess.
Like, she wanted to be a writer, and now she's, like,
I know.
She's honestly an incredibly iconic book.
Yeah. And
I appreciate that for her. I just hope they do this well, because it was something that meant a lot to me when I read it. Mm-hmm. I very much, like, felt like a connection to this book. And not in the way when I talk about like A Court of Thorns and Roses where I'm like, it was gonna be cast, where I'm like, oh, this is an important book that I think needed to be published at the time that it was published. Like 20 years earlier people would not have had the same reception, you know?
No, and I think it was one of the few books that I've written or that I've read from a biography. Like I'm not a huge like biography. Yeah. I don't really read celebrities books ever really. So this was kind of one of the few, and I thought it was so good. Yeah,
I thought she had a really good voice. So we'll see. We'll see who's gonna get cast as Jeanette.
I know, because I'll have to. Thing is, it can't really be her because I mean it's throughout her whole life. It's not.
It'll be multiple actresses.
It would have to be. Yeah, it'd be child actors.
I think an unknown would be the best way to go about it, though.
Me too.
But like that's what I would have said for her mom, and now we have like Jennifer Aniston is kind of a wild choice.
I was surprised by that one,
I don't know. That's what's
making me question it. Like, okay, I hope this is a serious thing.
I'm trying to think of like who I would have cast in that role.
You know who would be really good in it is like Patricia Arquette.
Yeah.
She always maybe I'm.
But I think it would have to be a younger Patricia Arquette. Well, I guess her and Jennifer Aniston
I don't know how old
age.
she was. I don't know how old her mom was. I'm saying that probably because I'm thinking of remember she played the mom in
Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Remember she played the mom in that show.
Oh, I didn't see that show, but I believe
I didn't see it either, but she played her. So I'm like, I could see her. I feel like she would play a good like crazy mom.
You know who would be? I think she's probably too old to play Jeanette McCurdy, but Amy Lou Wood. Maybe.
Oh, to play Jeanette McCurdy?
Yeah, maybe.
I was talking about the mom, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I was saying,
Patricia Arquette is Jeanette McCurdy.
I also think Julianne Moore, who's now the new Nicole Kidman and is in literally everything. Julianne Moore would be a good mom.
I don't know. I feel like Julianne Moore plays a good, like, composed crazy, whereas, like, this has to be, like, a screaming
But I think Julianne Moore is, like, a great actor and could really go there.
Yeah, that's true. So. I don't know. Interesting.
Who do you want? I feel like everybody I'm throwing out, you're like, no.
I almost want, like, a young Glenn Close.
What? She's, like... Okay, you can't just say a young... Like, they have to be real.
Okay, well, she was real at one point.
she's now Glenn Close, so you can't have it one... Like, you have to... pick somebody. You can't just be like, I want a young version of Glenn Close. That makes no sense.
I don't know. Like, I feel like I can't think of any actresses ever, honestly.
Okay.
No.
Oh, should I give an update? Tiny Chef got renewed, I guess. I don't know. It got saved.
Did they post another video being like...
They didn't post another video, but I think all the money... Aww. I think all the money it raised and all the talk around it got picked up again.
Okay.
So just wanted to give a little tiny chef update on that it got saved.
Oh, good for them.
I think it was us talking about it really saved the show.
Yeah, I think props to us. Yeah. But our last topic, so hopefully we do like a whole episode on Love Island, but just wanted to touch on this topical topic of Cierra Ortega has gotten booted from the Love Island villa, which has been like, this is my first season watching Love Island. I've been very invested in it. I've been trying to keep up like on time. And it was kind of wild because like, so they obviously like record the show before it happens. It's like what's happening right now currently is going to come out like on Wednesday. You know what I mean? Or tomorrow or whatever, which is crazy production turnaround. Yeah. But so there had been some issues earlier in the season where it was like on episode 2 or 3, there was a girl, her name was Yulissa, and she got booted from the villa. And I actually forgot she was on. Like, people kept mentioning her. I was like, who is this? Because she had been on a podcast and had been, like, people resurfaced where she had said some racial slurs. I guess she had said, like, the N-word a couple of times. And so then Cierra is one of the frontrunners of Love Island, and she is one of the only, like, closed-off couples. Like, she is actually the only closed-off couple. So, like, on Love Island, you're kind of, like, dating around. You have, like, your people, like your person that you're interested in, and then it's basically being like, we're going steady is like the main thing. And the point of Love Island at the end is America votes on who's their favorite couple. There's 1 week left of the show. Like, the finale is July 13th. And so, like, this was last week or so, it surfaced some of her Instagram stories where she had been using an Asian racial slur and in her post, and people were up in arms because they were like, why are we kicking Yulissa off for saying a racial slur, but we're not kicking Cierra off for the same thing? And it's really interesting how they handled it, because I think, like, you know, you kept seeing her on because, again, I think they were having discussions with, like, pre-recorded content. And so then I think it was the episode on Sunday, because I just watched it, the way, like, and you're really invested in these relationships, and people were like, everything on like the Love Island Instagram, people were commenting, they were like, why is Cierra still on the show, whatever, and Love Island just like was like, Cierra has left the villa for personal reasons, but her partner is still there. So you can see he's like clearly devastated, because I don't know if they told anyone else why she left. But it's interesting because she was already getting some hate for like how she was acting in the villa. Like, people used to really like her, and then she very clearly became kind of like, not a pick-me, but like just kind of doing like what her like quote unquote boyfriend said at the time. But it's interesting because so what happened was, she had said an Asian racial slur in a post from 2015, which originally she would have been maybe 14 years old, which originally, I'll be honest, I would say like, okay, I think we can, give some grace to that. Like, you're 14, you don't really know what you're saying, you don't like whatever, you're dumb at 14. But then she said it again in a post on Instagram in her story in 2020. And it's interesting because I was reading her post from 2020. It's a post on her story where she's getting Botox, I think, or something like an eyebrow lift when she says it. And it's almost like she's trying to be PC in the post, where she's like, I get this done to my eyes, but like, or like to me, but like, if you want to get it done to yours, that's great. If you don't, that's also great. Like, everyone should do, like, she was trying to be very PC in that way, but then also said this thing that made it very non-PC, and I was just like, damn. You know what I would love to be a fly on the wall for is her getting told that she's being kicked off the show for those reasons. So what's interesting is I saw a clip on TikTok or something where it was like, and I didn't notice it on the show, but then it got played back, where people are like, can you hear her yelling while it's like these two other like islanders are talking in the background, being like, saying something like, this isn't fair, like whatever, like, and you can kind of hear it once like somebody said it. Like, originally you're just kind of like, oh, like it's just noise, background noise, and then once someone said it, you're kind of like, wait, is that her like getting kicked out? And it's interesting because also like, I think if Love Island, I don't know if like the Love Island producers would have like actually kicked her out if it wasn't for all the online pressure, but there was a huge conversation where it's like, okay, we have kicked Yulissa out for saying this racial slur against like the Black community, but now there's maybe a discussion of if we're going to kick Cierra out for saying a racial slur against the Asian community. And I think a lot of people in the Asian community came out and said like, well, why are we like basically ranking the like what should be like the most offensive, like if you say this towards one community versus another, it should be just as offensive. But so and I'm kind of, the thing is, I'm both glad but also not that they like cut her out, because it does like, it's good that they held that standard, as I think they should, but it also is kind of crazy timing because they're the only like locked in couple. They're the only closed off couple 1 week towards the end. It's like someone that you've been with like for weeks and you like see all the time. And so it's interesting also because like, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong if like anyone listens to this, but it's like, okay, well, her partner could have also left the villa with her, but he decided to stay, and now he's recoupled with someone else. And so it is kind of just like, oh, well, things just kind of like bounced on and moved on without her. But it is like, it was the way they do it on Love Island, like, and I went back and listened to when they did it with Yulissa, because it was such a blip. It was like you literally had known these people for 2 seconds, that they were just like, Yulissa has left the villa. You know what would have been more interesting is if they had just, maybe this would have been way too messy, and just like inappropriate, but if they had made that a storyline, like why not like acknowledge it on the show? Well, I think they wouldn't, because they don't acknowledge anything that happens in the outside world on the show. Like, it's like they're in this villa, and it's funny because like Cierra and her partner Nick had gone on this date, and she's like, it's crazy, like we're closed off, I don't even know how you text, I don't even know your phone number. I was like, that is kind of wild. Something about that, what you just said, makes me panic. Like, I couldn't imagine being in that situation of like not knowing, because I'll tell you, like, a lot of people, like a lot of the conversation right now is, I would say a lot of people are sort of more, maybe, there a lot of Love Island watchers seem to be actually almost like kind of sympathetic towards Cierra a little bit, just in how it was, just from what I've read, just on how this was like handled, I guess. Yeah. I don't think they handled either of them very well. Right. And so a lot of people, so Sierra's parents actually posted something on their story, and they said, it was a very like, it was a well-written post actually. It was just saying like, this isn't
we know who our daughter is, like, please stop sending hate, because they're getting, like, hate messages and death threats and just all this, and they're like, please stop sending this, like, you know, we just, you know, and apparently Cierra, so once you leave the villa, I guess you don't just go home immediately, you're put in, like, a place, like, it's almost like you're coming out of, like, prison or something. Yeah. Like, she was somewhere, I guess, like, in hiding or something, I don't know, but she wasn't, like, home yet, so she still didn't have access to her phone or anything, so they were actually posting this from her Instagram. Yeah,
because while they're in the villa, they have people who run their social media pages.
Yeah, they said, you know, she's, like, until she looks at her phone, like, we are not letting her look at her phone, essentially. It was something like that. And it's just interesting because I think a lot of people are kind of like wherever she is and whenever she does come home, like, a lot of people are like, I hope that she does have support around her, because it is interesting, like, how much she has gotten, like, a lot of hate and stuff. And the whole thing, again, like you said, it wasn't really handled well for, I guess, either of them.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting to see, like, you know, how people... And I don't know Cierra, I don't watch the show, so I'm just seeing what the tweets are, but it seems like a lot of people are sort of more sympathetic towards her situation. Yeah. Which is interesting.
It is interesting, and I think maybe part of it is also, again, because, like, Yulissa, we had known her for, like, 2 episodes, so it's not, like, someone that you're connected to, whereas maybe Cierra people were, like, connected to, so it's easier to have, like, sympathy because you feel like you know them more. I don't know. And it's interesting also, like, Love Island has had to say, like, a couple of times this season where they're like, hey, like, the emphasis on Love Island, like, stop sending hate or whatever. But I think when you sign up for this show, like, you're kind of signing up for that.
That's not what they mean by Love Island, though. Like, so that's stupid.
But I do think, like, they've had to come out and be like, stop, like, the online bullying is bad. Like, even so, there was this girl, Vanna, on this season where she, you know, got sent off the island, and people online were hating on her for all of her filler that was really bad. Like, she looked bad, and she said when she got off, like, she got on the phone with her mom, and her mom was like, I wouldn't look at your phone yet.
Oh, maybe that's what I was saying. But yeah, the parents, though, it's interesting because do you just it'd be scary to me to give up my phone and then come back to all of the mess. Can you imagine you when your phone, like, blow up or something?
Yeah, it just explodes. I don't know.
No, for real. Like, and also, I can't imagine.
I don't know if, like, her parents had help writing that, but I'm just, like, imagining if it were my parents writing that. I was like, that would be my worst.
I'm sure her parents did not actually write that.
It would be like, they have dug me a bigger hole.
So it's interesting too, and I'm not, no shade to you, because you're not, like, really one of these people, I don't think, but I think a lot of Love Island fans have actually gotten kind of annoyed because it seems like there's a lot more viewers with this season. So there's a lot of new, maybe toxic fans of the show that have kind of contributed to all of this mess. And so it's interesting because people are like, it just didn't have this vibe. It seems to be a little bit of a messier, more toxic vibe this season than in past seasons. So all that hate and stuff, like, not that it didn't happen in the past, but I think it seems to have happened more this season. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in the UK one, I think, like, there was 2, I think I heard this on NPR, and I should say a trigger warning for suicide. But there were 2 contestants that killed themselves, and the host, like, I think had attempted suicide. Yeah. I heard this on NPR recently, and I remember, like, Chris and I were listening to it, like, this weekend going up to the lake, and we were just like, oh my God, like, it's crazy. So I think, like,
I would never be on these shows. Like, I can't imagine wanting to do that.
It's kind of wild. And again, like, I forget which character, I think maybe it was which person, I think it was Jeremiah, where he was like, oh, I just saw, like, a couple episodes and I applied, and I was just like, you should have watched the whole thing, because, like, you should know what you're getting into. It is kind of crazy. And it's also crazy that, like, the things that people found from 2015 and 2020 were on Cierra's story. And I'm like, okay, well, how did you find that?
I just saw something about it, actually. It was like, it had come up. It's like some people were talking about it, and then it seemed to have, like, blown up the more people talked about it or something. It was like people had, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm not making any sense, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. I can't imagine the thought. It really made me panic, though, you saying, like, they come into the house, they have no access to the outside world. I cannot imagine that. Like, that is so freaky to me. And I was going to say, too, like, the amount of hate they get, like, it reminds me of, like, what I was saying about Star Wars, is it's like, if I were offered a role in Star Wars if I were an actor, I'd literally say no, because to me it's, like, just not worth the hate you get from these psychotic fans.
Right. Which, again, she shouldn't have said what she said, but also sometimes,
right, I'm not even talking about her, I just mean all the people
well, like, even when we started this podcast, we were like, well, what if we, like, get, like, a bunch of, like, haters. And it's like, I think that's, even when we were journalists, I was like, that's what you're opening up to. Like, I would get like hate mail all the time for writing about a grocery store. It was crazy. But I think Love Island is interesting also because I'm like, okay, if you go on Love Island, they have to have the budget where it's like, we're gonna get professional people to be like, let me look at your social media, like let me look at every post you've ever made, because like this is, I think, caused a real like issue for the producers, because again, we're like right at the end.
They're really like risking their show,
right?
Well, isn't it wild to you though how many like influencers and just famous people suddenly have these posts that surface? I'm like, and I know, you can make the comment like, oh well, she was 14 and whatever. I mean, yes, I do agree, like it is, when you're a teenager, you're stupid. But sometimes it kind of amazes me. I'm like, I mean, like, I wasn't saying, like, stuff like that as a teenager. Like, it's wild to me how many people do have these, like, resurfaced slurs. I'm like, why were you saying that stuff at all, ever? Yeah, you say stupid stuff as a teenager, and I don't think you should necessarily be held accountable for what you say as a teenager. But if we're talking about, like, things you said in, like, 2020 or just whatever, it just is wild to me how many times you see, like, influencers get in trouble for past things that I'm just like, why did you say that?
And I think it's because, like, even so these people are, like, 25, 24, so they're solidly Gen Z, but like I think we grew up in an era where it was like the wild west of the web, right, where people were just like, I'm just posting things and like whatever, like especially if you don't have a big following, whereas like now I think people are more conscious.
I don't think you're gonna see that kind of stuff in the future, like in 5 years from now. I don't think like people of this generation are gonna necessarily, like, I don't think that's gonna happen anymore.
Right. And I think it'll be interesting. I always say, like, when like millennials and Gen Z like run for office eventually more like frequently, it's like all those old tweets, they're gonna get pulled up, it'll be interesting. I don't know. But so I think it'll be interesting to see, like, the episode is currently on right now, it's 9:49 p.m. How like the story arc of the show continues in this literal last week. It's like, this is the end. Yeah. And so it's crazy, like, this basically...
this is the last episode?
No, like, this week, like, finale, this week is the last week. And so it is crazy that, like, this main person, who, again, is, like, one of the only locked-in couples, is gone. But...
So does the rest of the cast not know either, then?
I don't know. Like, they mentioned... The thing is, with Yulissa, nobody, I think, mentioned it at all. But with Cierra, they kind of had to mention it because it was, like, she was with, like... They're with these people 24/7. So people were talking about it, but they never, like, say what happened. They're just like, yeah, like, it's such a shame that she had to leave.
Is there anybody who, like, announces things to them? Like, do they come in and tell them stuff?
I think, like, they talk to, like, the producers and the camera people. But, they don't ever really show that.
I was wondering, do they have interactions with anybody else, like caterers, for example, have to come in and bring food in or
I think they do. It's not like they're, like, silenced.
That's what I pictured, though.
Like us with that Uber that I accidentally hit silent ride. And it was like the most painful ride of our lives.
You know what's even more wild to me is that he broke the cone of silence.
I told him to. He was literally like, we were talking about like clubs that we were going to in Miami, and he was like, like he was like wanting to talk, and I literally lied, and I was like, oh, sorry, I hit the silent button by accident. You can totally talk.
No, he didn't do that. He did like say something under his breath. He was kind of like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I'm like, actually, it's kind of like, not that we care, but it's like, wow, he actually broke his command.
To be fair, he was probably like, these bitches are going to stupid clubs.
He's like, I have to say something.
Yes, he was like, I have to stop them. But anyways, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Hopefully we'll do like a whole episode on Love Island. This is my first time watching it, so that'll be fun.
You're one of the new toxic fans. Just kidding. I don't think you contribute to that at all.
I will say, though, every time I watch an episode, it's gotten me back on Twitter/X, which I've like got off of because like fuck all that. But anyways, but I'm just like, I gotta see what the like community's saying.
No, it's so entertaining. I don't watch the show again, but like I follow it. I keep up.
Yeah, it is entertaining. Like, and now they have like full bars where it's like our friend went to like a bar where it was like they're watching Love Island like you would watch the Super Bowl.
Right.
And I'm like, that sounds great.
Yeah. I
don't know how you would hear anything, but it sounds great.
Shared community experiences.
Yeah, which is what we have here on this podcast every week. Yes. And we thank you for being a part of our shared community every week. Continue every week.
And I do appreciate like our, some of our friends who say that they feel like they're in the room with us, and some of our listeners who say that. I'm just like, I'm good. I'm glad.
I'm picturing that scene from Mulan when all of her ancestor ghosts start showing up around her in that room.
Yeah, that's how we feel.
Yeah.
You are all our ancestor ghosts.
Yeah, we love
and
that.
We love you.
So please like, rate, review, subscribe. If you liked this, share with your friends. Like we said, follow us on Instagram at Poppin In Podcast. But most importantly, return this week and every week because we love you all. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.